Story 1. My not boyfriend said we were not a couple, so I broke his heart. We have been seeing each other for a year and everything looked and seemed like we are a couple. He said he loved me and I him. He spends every weekend with me, and we have planned our first trip together, etc. Last weekend he was in bed, and I made him pancakes because his birthday was on Tuesday. He was very happy about it and joked that I was spoiling him. I said that I wanted to spoil my man. He said, "I am not your man," with the same energy. He didn't seem awkward or embarrassed, just as calm with a smile on his stupid face. I didn't take it seriously and said, "Yeah, I know you are not my man." He was more serious now and said, "No, really, I am not your boyfriend." I felt sick, but I tried to be calm and I asked what we are. He said, "I don't know." Great FWB. I didn't say anything after that, and he ate his pancakes in silence. Later, he asked if we would do anything. I said that I was planning on cleaning and doing some paperwork. He left after an hour. I ran to the bathroom to be sick, and I probably cried for a solid 2 hours. I couldn't keep anything in my stomach for the rest of the day. He texted that evening thanking me for the breakfast in bed and that he thought I was amazing, but I didn't answer, so he called a few times. I didn't answer. Around 10 p.m. he rang my door. I just opened a jar and pretended I was sick with the flu and was going to bed. He offered to stay the night in case I needed help during the night, and I said no. I didn't answer him on Sunday or Monday, and I didn't wish him a happy birthday on Tuesday either. I have just been keeping it to short texts feigning sickness. He never brought up what he said once. Then yesterday he wrote that he missed me, and that he hadn't gone this long without talking to me since we met and that he was going mad. He asked if we could at least have dinner. I said that I was very busy. He said, "Don't you miss me?" I said that I was very tired because I was out all night with a guy last night. When I sent that last message saying I was exhausted because I had spent the night with another guy, my heart was racing. I was trembling, not from guilt because I hadn't done anything with anyone, but from anger at being made a fool. For the first time since that unbearable conversation at breakfast, I felt like I had regained some control. And it didn't take even 5 minutes. He saw it, typed, stopped, typed again, disappeared, came back. Anxiety took over my chest, but I didn't let it show. I put my phone aside and went to shower as if all of that wasn't corroding every part of my pride. When I came back, there was a response. Short. Seriously. I read it, ignored it. The game was mine now. 2 hours later, another message. "You can do whatever you want. Just don't complain later." I smiled. He thought he was threatening me, but I knew that tone. It was jealousy disguised as arrogance. He always thought he was clever, irresistible, the prize. So convinced that no matter what he did, I would continue there, willing to be the woman who makes pancakes and settles for crumbs of affection. But not this time. At night, around 10:30, when the street was already silent and I was already lying down with my face buried in the pillow, I heard the doorbell. My heart raced. I knew it was him. No one else would show up like that, unannounced at that hour. I let it ring, then a light knock on the door, and another one. I got up slowly, without making noise, as if I were a thief in my own house. I peeked through the side window. It was him, leaning against the wall, arms crossed with that corner of the mouth smile, as if he were doing me a favor by being there. Pure arrogance. I didn't open. His phone grabbed his attention, vibrating. "Open up. I just want to talk. You know this tantrum of yours won't last." Tantrum. He thought I was having a tantrum. I replied, "You said you weren't my boyfriend. I'm just enjoying my freedom." The response came in seconds. "Freedom you never wanted. You'll get tired of this little theater quickly. Call me when it passes." I read that and laughed out loud. A dry, almost nervous laugh. He still believed I would run after him, that I would beg, that he was the prize. But that night, the one who got tired was me. Tired of begging for crumbs of dignity. Tired of being called a friend with benefits after a year of sharing every weekend. Tired of preparing surprises for someone who didn't even consider me a partner. He knocked again, this time harder. "Are you going to keep pretending you're not home now?" He shouted, low but firm. His voice was choked with anger. You weren't like this, you know? What kind of guy did you go out with yesterday? Huh? Was he good? Better than me? Silence. I didn't even expect that. He was actually jealous. The king of indifference, shaken. I almost felt vindicated there, but it still wasn't enough. I opened the window calmly and looked into his eyes. It's none of your business, I replied. You're not my boyfriend, remember? His look transformed. From arrogance came surprise, then anger. You're not going to provoke me, ignore me, and still treat me like just anyone. Understand. But that's exactly what you did to me for a year. He took a step back, breathed deeply, and looked at the ground. Then he stared at me again with a forced smile. You'll get tired. You'll realize that none of these guys will know you like I know you. You'll miss it. And when that happens, I'll be here. Don't be, I replied, and I closed the window. That night he left. But I knew it wasn't over. His ego was too big to accept a no as an answer. The jealousy would grow. The insecurity too. And for the first time, I felt the game had turned because he might not call me his girlfriend. But now, he was the one who couldn't sleep. And me? I was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy head and a tight chest. It was still hard to swallow all of that. His words echoed like an insistent buzzing. You'll get tired. When that happens, I'll be here. He thought he was something in such a disgusting and arrogant way that I felt dirty just remembering that I had gotten involved with him, that I had desired that body, that touch. How could I have deluded myself so much? I grabbed my phone and started deleting old conversations. There were hundreds of messages, memes, videos, promises thrown between laughs and nights that, in my head, meant something to him. Just distraction between one hookup and another. I realize now, but the worst was yet to come. I went out for coffee with Vanessa, my best friend. I needed to talk to someone, get everything out. She had always been my anchor, my lucidity in storms. When I arrived, she looked at me with that worried expression, like someone who already felt I was about to collapse. Did he mess up again? She asked before I even sat down. I told her everything, from the conversation about not being my boyfriend to the lie about going out with another guy. When I finished, she was silent for a while. Then she breathed deeply, stirring her coffee cup as if weighing each word. Girl, there's something I never wanted to tell you. I thought he would grow up, change, but now I see he never respected you. My stomach turned. What? Do you remember that time we went to the bar with the college crowd? A few months after you two started dating? I nodded, already feeling my blood freeze. So he came to talk to me. He complimented me, kept making too much conversation. At the time, I thought it was just friendliness. But then, when you went to the bathroom, he approached and asked if I had ever thought about hooking up with both of you at the same time. I froze literally. I stayed motionless. Heat rose through my face and my throat closed up. What? I told him to go fuck himself. Of course, I said you were my best friend and that he was an idiot. He just laughed, said it was a joke, that the important thing was to enjoy life without labels. And that was it. But after that, I started noticing. He flirted with others, too, always on the sidelines. I felt bad, but I didn't want to hurt you. I closed my eyes tightly. How did I not see? How was I so blind? The way he stayed glued to his phone when he was with me, the smiles he exchanged with strangers, the new friendships on Instagram every week. And you're sure that he? I started to ask, but the answer came before I even finished. Yes, he's already gone out with at least 2 girls from our class. One of them told me he said he had no commitment to anyone, that it was just fun. This was while he was with you every weekend. A mixture of disgust, disappointment, and humiliation took over me. I felt like screaming, breaking something, disappearing. He made me pancakes and said he loved me with the same mouth that complimented my friends behind my back. And he still thought I would beg for him. He used me, deceived me, treated me like an option, like a safe base, while he experimented with the world. While he collected bodies, kisses, and glances, I was there giving myself, surrendering, thinking the love was reciprocal. But it wasn't love. It was convenience. It was ego. I spent the rest of the afternoon in silence. Vanessa tried to talk more, but I could only shake my head. The world around me seemed in slow motion. The laughter of other customers in the cafe irritated me. I wanted to get up and scream for everyone to hear. He didn't love me. He lied to me. He's a fraud. But I stayed quiet. On the way home, anger transformed into something even more powerful. Focus. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to hide anymore. He underestimated me, and now he was going to find out what it means to play with the wrong heart. I spent the night awake, sitting on the couch, going over everything. Every word, every attitude, every slip. I put together the puzzle, and in the end, I saw the clear portrait of a scoundrel. But this time, I wouldn't just be another piece. The revenge, the one that was being slowly drawn inside me, was almost ready. And when it was put into practice, he would taste the bitter flavor of being disposable the same way he made me feel. The plan began to form that very night between dry tears and lost gazes at the ceiling. But it wasn't driven just by pain. It was by truth, by the brutal clarity that came after the last disappointment. I didn't just want to disappear from his life. I wanted him to see, for him to feel, for him to live the same discomfort he planted in me during all those months when he pretended to be something he never was. And ironically, the idea came when I thought of the only person who had already warned me about him. Lucas. Lucas was the complete opposite of that idiot. Polite, calm, always with a gentle sense of humor and an honest look. A guy who listened more than he spoke, who didn't need to show off or compete for attention. The first time we met was at a party when my almost boyfriend introduced me to him with that typical tone of possession, as if saying, "This is my girl. Don't try anything." Lucas smiled and greeted me with respect, but it was only when we met again by chance at an academic event weeks later that we really talked. I remember his words perfectly from that night. "You seem too nice for someone like him. Just take care of yourself. Okay?" At the time, I thought it was an exaggeration. I thought he was being too critical of his own friend. But now everything made sense. Lucas already knew who he was. He had already seen the rot up close. And now he would be part of my healing. Not because I wanted to play with someone's feelings, but because for the first time I wanted to put myself as a priority. And yes, maybe a little revenge entered the package. I wanted him to see that there were better men, that there were people who knew how to love, and that the woman he dismissed was desired by someone with more character than he would ever have. I sent a direct message to Lucas, something simple. "Hi, I know this might seem strange, but you're right about him and I wanted to thank you for being honest. Do you have time this week? I wanted to talk." He replied half an hour later, "I do. Want to have coffee tomorrow?" The next day we met. I went with a tight heart, not knowing what to expect, but he received me with a light hug and a welcoming smile, the kind that calms even the loudest internal chaos. We talked for hours. I told him everything without filter, without playing the victim, and he listened without interrupting, without trying to minimize. When I finished, he breathed deeply. "I tried to warn you, but he's been my friend for years. And even so, he was always like this, charming, impulsive, a womanizer. He never respected any girl. But with you, it was more cruel because he knew you loved him." I stayed silent. He was right. I had loved with all my strength. But now it's enough. I continued, "He lost me, and I don't want to live in function of the pain anymore. I want to turn the page. And if you allow me, I want to do this with someone who truly sees me." Lucas looked at me, surprised but not shocked, as if he already expected that at some point this would happen. "You deserve more than he gave you, and more than he'll understand one day," he said. And yes, I'm here. It was the first time in weeks that I felt peace. But also, in some dark corner of my mind, I knew, when he finds out, and he will find out, he won't be able to stand it. Because nothing hurts a narcissist more than seeing his ex being happy with someone he considers inferior. But Lucas wasn't inferior. He was exactly what the other never was. Honest, transparent, present. And that would hurt much more than any silence of mine. Because now I had a voice. I had choice. I had power. And the one who once thought I would always be there waiting would soon see that the world turns. And sometimes it turns beautifully. It didn't take long for the news to reach him. I knew it would be a matter of time. Men like him always have eyes and ears everywhere, especially when they think they've lost control over someone they judged predictable. And the truth is, he never imagined, not for a second, that I would be capable of turning the game around. It was on Saturday night. I was with Lucas at a discreet restaurant. Nothing luxurious, but charming with low lights and a guitar playing in the background. We were laughing at some silly joke, dessert shared in the middle of the table, when I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. 1, 2, 3 messages in a row. Are you seriously with him? Have you lost your mind? We need to talk now. I didn't respond. Lucas saw my expression change and asked if everything was okay. I smiled with the most fake tranquility in the world and replied that I would explain later. I stayed there with him, present, because that moment was mine. For the first time in a long time, I wanted to be selfish. Let him wait, feel, brood. It was the least. But the next day, he showed up. He didn't even bother to send a message first. He rang the doorbell forcefully as if he had some right to demand, as if our story was paused and he now decided to press the play button. I opened the door. He was there with a closed face, red eyes, and heavy breathing, the air of an owner, of a wounded man, of an alpha male out of his cage. Are you hooking up with Lucas? He spat the question as if it were an offense. Good morning to you too. Stop beating around the bush. Answer me. Are you really hooking up with him? I crossed my arms and stared. I am. Why? Does it bother you? He laughed. A mocking and irritated laugh at the same time, running his hand through his hair and walking in circles as if trying to control his own anger. You're unbelievable. With my best friend? Seriously? That's low even for you. Low? I repeated, feeling anger rise like a high tide. You're talking about low now after everything you did? It's not the same thing. I never hooked up with any of your friends. But you tried, didn't you? I shot back coldly. He froze. His eyes widened for a second, then looked away as if searching for a quick escape from his own guilt. What are you talking about? About Vanessa. You thought she would never tell me? That night at the bar? You said you wanted to hook up with both of us at the same time. Remember now. He fell silent, a silence that screamed louder than any justification. That was a joke, he said finally. You know I talk shit sometimes. I would never really do that. It wasn't a joke to me or to her. And even if it was, what kind of joke is that? Coming from someone who said he loved me. I love you. Damn it. That's why I'm here. Because I love you and you're throwing this away because of an idiot who shouldn't even be in our circle. Funny. Now you use the word love. But when I made pancakes for your birthday, you said you weren't my boyfriend. That we were just friends with benefits. Remember? That wasn't a joke. You were clear, cold, convinced. I was confused. I didn't know what I felt. No, you knew. You just didn't want to give up the others. And now that you see me happy with someone who surpasses you in everything, you come here demanding morals. He huffed. He was disarmed, but still trying to seem offended. His eyes were full, as if they wanted to cry. But pride held back because deep down he didn't feel love. He felt possession, and losing it was the real trigger. He's only with you to provoke me, he said in a last gasp of vanity. No, he's with me because he wanted to, because he respects me, because he listens to me, because he values me. Something you never did. He looked at me as if he were seeing a stranger, as if for the first time he understood that I was no longer the woman who made pancakes, smiling, and waited for a crumb of affection. I was someone else, and this version he didn't know and wouldn't have the chance to know. Go away, I said firmly, and enjoy the walk to think about everything you lost. He hesitated. He looked around as if looking for something that would make him stay. But there was nothing left. No excuse, no chance, no us. And I closed the door. Not just of the house, but of the story. The following Monday, while I was still processing everything that had happened with the not boyfriend over the weekend, his unexpected visit, the shouting, The look of surprise when he discovered I knew everything. I received a message from Lucas. Hey, I wanted to take you away from routine this week. Want to have dinner with me again? Nothing fancy, I promise. Just me, you, and good pizza. I smiled. For the first time in days, I really smiled. The kind of smile that isn't a response to a provocation or a bitter victory. It was just lightness, peace, a genuine desire to be with someone without having to walk on eggshells or pretend to be less than I am. I replied with a simple, Wednesday night is all yours. And that was it. Simple, direct, true, like he always was with me. On Wednesday, I got ready more calmly. Nothing exaggerated. Jeans, a light blouse, and just mascara to bring life to my eyes. It wasn't about impressing. It was about feeling good, about going out with someone who made me laugh, who listened to me, who treated me like a priority, not like a pastime. He came to pick me up. He opened the car door with that somewhat shy, somewhat gentleman from the past century way, and greeted me with a sincere smile. I missed your laugh, he said as soon as I got in. And I miss someone who makes me laugh, I replied. We went to a small but charming pizzeria in downtown. A cozy place, old wooden tables, funny pictures on the walls, and a waiter who already seemed to know Lucas by name. The usual? The waiter asked with a smile. Today I have special company, so I wanted extra good, Lucas replied, looking at me with that calm and warm gaze. We talked about everything. Work, music, teenage embarrassments, old movies we love that no one else watches anymore. I laughed, caught myself playing with my hair, crossing and uncrossing my legs, as if my whole body was reacting to the lightness of the night. It was so different from the heavy conversations and tense silences I used to live. There I was myself, whole, without fear. After the pizza, we walked down the street unhurriedly, like people who don't want the night to end. He asked me if I was okay after what happened with his ex-friend, and I answered honestly. I'm not 100% yet, but I'm rebuilding myself little by little, and you've been helping with that more than you imagine. He smiled, but this time it was a different smile. A little more serious, more loaded with feeling. I never wanted to interfere, never wanted to force anything. But since I met you at that ridiculous party where he treated you like you were just another one, I knew he didn't deserve you. And do you think you deserve me? He stopped walking. He looked at me for a few seconds until he said, I don't know if I deserve you, but I admire you. I respect you, and I do want to really get to know you. Not for what he painted you as, but for who you are. My heart raced. I didn't expect that. Not so direct, not so beautiful. Then get to know me, I replied with a voice firmer than I thought I had. We stood there in the middle of the sidewalk looking at each other as if the world had given us a truce. And when he slowly approached, asking with his eyes if he could kiss me, I just closed my eyes and let it happen. It was a calm kiss, full of care, without rush, without ulterior motives. It was as if it said, I'm here and I won't hurt you. And in that moment I believed because I deserved that. After so many games, so many lies, so many silences, I deserved a man who knew how to be light. And if by chance the other found out, if he writhed with rage, if he screamed, if he went crazy, that was his problem. The pain he caused me no longer imprisoned me. And now I had someone who looked at me like no one had ever looked before. Without fear, without doubt, as if I had finally chosen right. A few weeks after that kiss with Lucas, my life seemed to have found a new axis. It wasn't perfect. Nothing is. But for the first time in a long time, I woke up calm, without waiting for messages that didn't come, without measuring words, without walking on eggshells. Lucas didn't make me play games. He was just there, present, real. And that, for someone like me who spent a year being treated like an option with exclusive packaging, was liberating. We started going out frequently, movies, cafes, walks, nights at home cooking together. He knew my silences and didn't fill them with empty promises. He just listened to me, made me laugh, made me feel seen. And of course, the other couldn't stand it. His ego wouldn't let him. In the third week, he showed up in front of the building where I lived without warning. He looked like someone who hadn't slept for days. Wrinkled clothes, red eyes, but even so, his pride was intact. Arrogance doesn't wash away with tears. You've become a bitch. He spat as soon as he saw me coming down, without even saying good morning. The word hit my chest like a spark, but instead of igniting me inside, it froze me. For a second, just a second, I almost laughed. Bitches in your head are women who don't kneel when you snap your fingers, right? I replied, crossing my arms. Who don't make pancakes on your birthday after hearing they're not your girlfriend? He huffed, paced back and forth like a caged animal. You're with Lucas. Lucas, my best friend. Do you think that's right? Do you think that's dignified? What I think, I said, approaching, is that you were never my boyfriend. Remember? You repeated that like a mantra. Friends with benefits. No labels. Just having fun. Well, then I freed myself from your label of nothing and found someone who wanted to be everything. He stared at me with anger, but it was anger at himself, and I knew it. And you know what the difference between you and him is? I continued. You desired me, he chose me. You used me to inflate your ego. He listens to me, respects me, values me. You left me crying whole nights. He makes me sleep smiling. He tried to laugh as if he were above it all. He's just using you to get to me. No, dear. He doesn't even talk about you. You're the past. A mistake I've already overcome. The one who's still obsessed here is you. He closed his face, fists clenched. But I wasn't afraid. You were never a man to me. You were a spoiled boy who collected women like trophies. And now you're freaking out because one of them decided to leave the shelf. Do you think he'll love you forever? He screamed, without arguments. He'll get tired, too. Everyone gets tired. Maybe so, or not. But at least if it ends, it will be with dignity, with respect. Not with lies, betrayal, and cowardice. He fell silent for the first time, without an answer, the mask of superiority slowly falling. Then I delivered the final blow. I was everything you said you wanted. Faithful, present, caring, dedicated. But you were so busy trying to seem free that you lost someone who just wanted to love you. And the worst part, you didn't lose to a stranger, but to someone who saw your trash and still decided to see me. He lowered his gaze, swallowed hard, and turned his back. He left without saying anything else. And there I knew not only that I was free from him, but that this time he was the one who would sleep with his stomach churning, that he was the one who would check his phone and not see my name, that he was the one who would remember my touch, my laugh, my care, and know he would never have any of that again. Vanessa, my best friend, never wanted to know about him again. She distanced herself from everyone in common who still insisted on saying that he just didn't know how to love. She said that those who don't know how to love, learn. Only those who don't want to, don't learn. And he clearly never wanted to. Lucas, on the other hand, stayed by my side. Not as a consolation prize, but as someone who saw my cracks and decided not to run away. He made me remember that love isn't noise, drama, or uncertainty. It's presence. It's peace. And as for me, I didn't become cold or bitter. But I stopped accepting the minimum disguised as everything. I learned that whoever doesn't claim you doesn't deserve you. Whoever diminishes you when you give yourself isn't a man. He's just a boy playing at having a woman. And especially, I learned that we don't beg for love. We withdraw with class, with dignity, and let karma do the rest. A few months passed since that last confrontation, and the storm finally dissipated from my life. The one who once swore not to be my boyfriend, who laughed at my dedication, my affection, my loyalty, today is nothing more than a distant shadow. I hear from time to time that he still comments about me as if we were an unresolved story. Some mutual friends say he's been quieter, more lost, more bitter. But honestly, I don't care anymore because now I'm happy, truly happy. Lucas and I made our relationship official in a light way, without pressure, without social media making a fuss. It was on a common late afternoon after coffee and a walk in the park. He held my hand, looked into my eyes and said, I know you came from a place where love was doubt, but with me, I want it to be certainty. If you're still ready to love, I'm here. Not as a prize, but as someone who wants to build something with you. I said yes, and I never regretted it. Today, our days are calm, full of laughter, long conversations, and lingering kisses. He makes me pancakes, and I make sure to remember how good it is to have someone who isn't afraid to say, "I love you," and prove it every day without needing to play games. The pain of the past still exists, but now it's just a scar. It doesn't hurt anymore. It just serves to remind me how much I've grown, how much I deserve, and how much I accepted crumbs for so long without knowing there was a feast waiting for me at the right table next to the right person. Lucas was never a trophy of my revenge. He was the unexpected cure, the beautiful detail after so much mess, the soft light after so much darkness. And me? I'm the one he didn't want to claim, who he said wasn't his girlfriend, who he thought would beg for crumbs of attention. Today, I'm the official girlfriend of his best friend. The one who walks hand in hand down the street without needing to hide. The one who is introduced with pride, not as a friend, but as the woman I chose. And if there's one thing I learned from all this, it's that whoever doesn't claim you doesn't deserve you. Whoever underestimates you loses you. And whoever knows what they have in their hands takes care of it, loves it, stays. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I dated my lawyer boyfriend, Mateo, for 5 years. He canceled our wedding 52 times. The first time, his intern messed up some papers and he left me stranded on the beach to fix it. I waited all day alone. The second time, he left in the middle of the ceremony, claiming his intern was in trouble again. From then on, it was always because of her. Always because of her. I finally reached my limit. I packed my bags and ended things. The day I left, Mateo panicked and tried to find me. Today was wedding attempt number 52. Just family this time. I dragged myself to the venue with a fever, only to find Mateo in the groom's room giving Sophia, the same intern, an ankle massage. She was limping as always. My parents just shook their heads. Seriously? Again? Right before the ceremony, he escaped again. "I have to take Sophia to the hospital," he said. "Should we postpone until next time?" He used to beg. This time I didn't smile. "It's fine. Sophia probably can't wait." He blinked in surprise. "Great. I'll bring you that strawberry cake you love so much tonight." I nodded. He left. I hate strawberries and cake. He knew that. I told him on our first date. He even wrote it down. I went back inside, tore up the wedding dress I had worn 52 times, and canceled everything forever. My parents comforted me. "Come back to Culverton with us." Culverton, where his law firm is located. I studied law because of them. I was supposed to join after graduation, but instead, I followed Mateo. I even hid my background to fit his small-town image. In those 5 years, I became partner material. People called us the golden couple. I thought someday he'd be okay with who I really was. That day never came. I agreed to go home. Later that night, while checking social media, I saw Sophia's post. Dragged someone's almost groom to play a game with me. I promised him dinner. It worked like a charm. Same story, same game. I laughed bitterly. Thank God we never legally married. The next morning, I resigned. My boss, Mr. Garcia, tried to stop me. While we were talking, Mateo walked in with a love bite on his neck and Sophia's perfume still on him. Mr. Garcia groaned. "Talk to your girlfriend. She's quitting." Mateo intervened. "Are you still mad about the wedding?" "It's not that," I said. "I'm just tired." "Then take a vacation," he said. "Quitting makes it look like you have problems with Sophia, right?" The same vacation days I wasted on each failed wedding. He caught me looking at the mark. "Mosquito bite," he mumbled. A clumsy excuse. I nodded. He smiled. "That's better. Let it go. Dinner tonight at LSE." I didn't respond. He took my silence as a yes. Sophia burst in. "Sorry for interrupting your date, but I need help with this case." She didn't even look at me. They whispered as if I wasn't there. Then she hooked her arm through his and strutted out, showing me a smug smile. When she slammed the door, my bracelet broke. A gift from our first anniversary. Mateo said it symbolized how unbreakable we were. I threw it in the trash along with The Last of Us. Later, I packed my things. Carmen, my replacement, murmured, "Are you really leaving now? I'll be stuck watching them drool all day." I saw Mateo slip a luxury bracelet onto Sophia's wrist. She panicked when she saw me. "It's just a bracelet, Miss Rainsorf. Please don't be upset." I smiled. "It looks good on you." 5 years and Mateo never bought me anything like that. Everyone thought I was just a clueless girl from nowhere. Even Carmen seemed furious. I turned to Sophia. "I'm not upset. I had bracelets like that back in Culverton." Mateo scoffed. "Rennie, stop being dramatic. I'm not angry. You two need to stop making things up about me." After work, Mateo came to help me pack. "Dinner is still on at 8. He noticed my bare wrist. "Where's the bracelet I gave you?" "I left it at home. I didn't want to risk breaking it." "You used to wear it every day." Before I could answer, Sophia appeared. "I'm ready." He lit up. "I'll wait for you in the car," he said, and left with her toward the front passenger seat. The one he always said was for his future wife. She looked at me over her shoulder smugly. I just nodded. It didn't hurt anymore. At dinner, they sat on the same side of the booth, ordering without looking at me. I stared out the window. Mateo slid me a plate of shrimp. Then Sophia intervened. "She ate 3 plates the last time we came here." Mateo turned red. "Why are you saying that in front of my fiancé?" She laughed. "Oops. Sorry." They laughed. I pushed the plate away. "Not my thing." "Enjoy it, you too." Mateo asked, "Are you upset?" I smiled. "Not too fishy like you two." After dinner, Mateo walked Sophia home. I was the one who closed the door. Then I called a taxi to go to the airport. On the way, Mateo kept texting me. "Where are you, Rennie? Please answer. You can't just disappear like this." The notifications kept coming one after another, making my phone vibrate incessantly in the taxi seat. The driver looked at me through the rearview mirror with a worried expression, probably wondering if I was running away from an abusive relationship. He wasn't wrong in a way. I turned off the phone. For the first time in 5 years, I felt genuine relief flowing through my veins. The airport was approaching, and with it, my freedom. But then a call came to the taxi phone. The driver answered and, after a few seconds, handed me the device. "It's for you, ma'am." It was Mateo. My stomach churned. How had he gotten the taxi company's number? "Rennie, I know you're going to the airport. Please don't do this. We can talk." "How did you get this number?" My voice came out colder than I intended. "I have my contacts. Listen, I canceled dinner with Sophia. I'm coming to get you now." He canceled dinner with Sophia. After 5 years of putting me second, now that I was really leaving, he was canceling something with her. The irony was so bitter I almost laughed. "Don't come after me, Mateo." "Rennie, I love you. You know that." Love, what an interesting word coming from him. Was love leaving me stranded 52 times? Love was leaving our own wedding ceremony to take another woman to the hospital. Love was forgetting that I hate strawberries after 5 years together. Love? If you loved me, you would have come to our wedding today. Sophia was hurt. Sophia is always hurt, Mateo, and you always run to save her. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought he had hung up. Then I heard his heavy breathing. "Fine. You want to leave? Leave. But don't blame me when you discover you made the biggest mistake of your life." And he hung up. I returned the phone to the driver, who shook his head disapprovingly. We arrived at the airport 15 minutes later, and I bought the first available ticket to Culverton. The flight would leave in 2 hours. While waiting at the gate, I turned on my phone again. 17 missed messages, all from him. I didn't read any. Instead, I called my parents. "Rennie." My mother's voice sounded worried. "How was dinner?" "I'm at the airport, Mom. Coming home tomorrow morning." A silence, then a sigh of relief. "Thank God. Your father and I were talking earlier. We never really liked Mateo. That was news to me. For 5 years, they had been nothing but polite to him." "Why?" "He never treated you as a priority, dear. And we raised you to be someone's priority, not the second choice." Tears began rolling down my face. Not from sadness, but from relief. Relief from finally hearing someone validate what I had felt for so long. The flight was announced. I hung up after saying goodbye to my mother and boarded. As the plane took off, I looked out the window and saw the city getting smaller and smaller. 5 years of my life were down there, getting farther away every second. And for the first time, that didn't scare me. I woke up with the plane landing in Culverton. The airport was small, nothing compared to where I came from, but there was something comforting about its simplicity. My parents were waiting for me in the arrivals area, and the hug I received was the first genuine hug I had felt in months. "Welcome back home, daughter," my father murmured in my ear. Home. The word sounded strange after so long, but it also sounded right. On the way home, my mother told me the town's news. Who had gotten married, who had gotten divorced, who had opened new businesses. It was comforting to hear about lives that continued, that changed and evolved naturally, without drama or lies. "By the way," my father said as he entered the garage, "I talked to the firm's partners about your return. They're eager to have you back." My parents' law firm was successful, specializing in corporate and real estate law. I had grown up playing among the files, dreaming of someday working alongside them, until Mateo appeared and changed all my plans. "I'd love to come back," I replied, and I realized it was true. They settled me in my old room, which they had kept exactly as I left it. My diplomas were still hanging on the wall, my law books organized on the shelves. It was like going back in time before making all those wrong decisions. I spent the rest of the day arranging my things and trying to process everything that had happened. In the evening, my parents insisted on ordering Chinese food, my favorite when I was a teenager. We were eating and talking when my phone rang. It was Mateo again. This time I answered. "Rennie, thank God. Where are you?" "At home." "At home? Your apartment is empty." "I have a key. Remember?" Of course he had a key. And of course he had invaded my apartment. "Not that home, Mateo. My real home. Culverton." The silence was deafening. "You really left?" "I said I would leave." "Rennie, this is ridiculous. You can't just abandon everything we built together." "What did we build?" I laughed bitterly. "Mateo, in 5 years you canceled our wedding 52 times. 52? And always for the same person. What exactly do you think we built?" "I made mistakes, okay? But we can fix it. Come back home and let's talk." "This is my home now." "For how long? A week? A month? You're going to get tired of this little revenge and come back." "Little revenge?" He thought I had left everything behind as a little revenge. 5 years wasted with a man who didn't know me at all. "I'm not coming back, Mateo." "And Sophia, do you really think there's something between us?" The question caught me off guard. Not because of the question itself, but because of the way he asked it. As if the answer mattered. As if, after everything, he still expected me to be jealous. "Honestly, I hope so. You deserve each other." And I hung up. My parents had heard the entire conversation. My father shook his head disapprovingly while my mother took my hand. "You did the right thing, dear." That night, lying in my teenage bed, looking at the ceiling I knew so well, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. It wasn't happiness yet. It was too early for that. But it was peace. And for now, that was enough. The next morning, I woke up early and went to the firm with my father. The building was smaller than I remembered, but still imposing with its brick facade and large windows facing the town's main square. The name Rainsorf and Associates shone on the bronze plaque next to the entrance. Rennie, the secretary, Dolores, greeted me with a huge smile. She had worked for my parents since before I was born. "How good to have you back, dear. You've grown so much." I spent the morning reacclimating to the firm, reviewing cases, and meeting new employees. It was surprising how everything seemed familiar, even after so long. Law had always been natural to me, a second language I spoke fluently. Around noon, while having lunch with my parents at the small cafe on the corner, my phone rang. It wasn't Mateo this time. It was Carmen, my former coworker. "Rennie, thank God you answered. You need to know what's happening here." "Carmen, I don't work there anymore. Whatever it is, It's not my problem anymore. It's about Matteo and Sofia. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice steady. What about them? They're not even trying to hide it anymore. After you left yesterday, they left the office together holding hands. And this morning, she arrived wearing his shirt. I felt a strange mix of validation and disgust. I had been right all along. All the signs were there, all the cheap excuses, all the convenient emergencies, and I had wasted 5 years of my life pretending not to see. Carmen, thanks for letting me know, but there's more. Mr. Garcia is furious. He discovered that Matteo had been using the firm's resources to pay Sofia's medical bills. Apparently, she never had adequate health insurance, and he was diverting money from cases to cover her treatments. Now, this was interesting and potentially criminal. What kind of treatments? Physical therapy mainly for the ankle. She's always hurting. But also some other things, minor cosmetic surgeries, dermatological treatments, things that are definitely not medical emergencies. Cosmetic surgeries, dermatological treatments. While I wore the same wedding dress 52 times, he was financing his mistress's transformation with money from the firm. Is Mr. Garcia going to fire him? Worse, he's thinking of suing him. And you know what's most ironic? He wants you to come back to handle the case. I laughed. The irony was almost poetic. Tell Mr. Garcia thanks for the offer, but I have other priorities now. I hung up and told my parents everything. My father, who had been a prosecutor before opening the private firm, shook his head knowingly. Embezzlement. If they prove he used firm money for personal purposes, he could go to jail. Good, was all I could say. My mother looked at me with concern. You're not too happy about this, are you? She was right. I should be furious, devastated, or at least satisfied with his downfall. But all I felt was empty, as if Matteo was a phase of my life that had already passed, like a cold that had finally healed. I'm not feeling anything, I admitted. It's strange. It's not strange, my father said gently. It's healing. We spent the rest of the day working. It was refreshing to be surrounded by colleagues who respected me, who valued my opinion, who didn't treat me like decoration or a second choice. Around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when we were getting ready to leave, Dolores came to my desk with a strange expression. Rennie, there's a man in reception asking for you. He says he's your ex-fiancé. My blood froze. Matteo is here? He said he drove all night to get here. He looks desperate. I looked at my father, who immediately stood up. Do you want me to talk to him? No. I took a deep breath. I'm going to talk to him, but stay close just in case. I walked to the reception with trembling legs. Matteo was there exactly as Dolores had described. Desperate. His eyes were red, he had an unshaven beard, and he was wearing the same clothes from the day before. He really had driven all night. Rennie, thank God. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Matteo, please, just give me 5 minutes. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized something I had never noticed before. He was scared. Not sad, not sorry. Scared. Fine. 5 minutes. We went out to the plaza in front of the firm. It was late afternoon, and the golden sunset light made everything seem surreal. I screwed everything up, he began. I know I screwed up, but you can't just throw away 5 years of our lives like that. I didn't throw them away, Matteo. You threw them away every time you chose her instead of me. It's not what you think. Sofia and I were not. Carmen told me about the money. He paled. What money? The firm's money you used to pay for her treatments. The cosmetic surgeries, the fake physical therapy. How did you? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that you stole money from your job to support your mistress and then had the audacity to ask me to marry you 52 times. I didn't steal anything. I just what, Matteo? Just diverted company funds? Just lied to me for 5 years? Just made me feel crazy for questioning the obvious. He was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. You think you're better than everyone, don't you? You always thought so. Coming from your rich family with your fancy diplomas. Doing charity by dating me. And there it was. The truth he had hidden for 5 years. He had always resented me. My success, my family, my education. I had spent 5 years trying to make myself smaller to fit his insecurity, and he still hated me for it. "You're right," I said calmly. "I am better than you. Not because I come from money or because I have diplomas. I'm better than you because I never lied, never cheated, never made you feel like a second choice. I'm better than you because when I promise something, I keep it." He took a step toward me, and for a moment, I thought he was going to hit me. But then he saw my father approaching and stepped back. "This isn't over, Rennie." "Yes, it's over. And if you show up here again, I'm calling the police." He looked at me with such hatred that I felt a chill. Then he turned around and walked to his car. I stood there trembling until he disappeared from sight. My father put his arm around my shoulders. "Are you okay?" "I'm okay. I'm finally okay." And for the first time in 5 years, it was true. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My boyfriend made me wait 2 hours at a fancy restaurant for what was supposed to be a special night. When he finally walked in with his friends, he grinned and said loudly, "See, told you she'd still be sitting here like a lost little puppy." They all laughed. We had been together for 3 years, and I had just finished paying off his car loan. I simply smiled and ordered another drink. This morning, my phone lit up with 78 missed calls, and his belongings are now sitting in trash bags at the nearest dump. I met Ryan 3 years ago in the most ridiculous way. My apartment got wrecked when my upstairs neighbor somehow forgot they had left their sink running before leaving for an entire weekend. Who does that? I had to crash at my brother's place while the damage was being repaired, and Ryan was the handyman assigned to fix everything. Every time he showed up, he'd discover a new issue, which, looking back, was probably just an excuse to keep coming over. I thought it was cute at the time. Now, I wonder if he was purposely messing things up just to stretch out the job. Either way, I remember thinking how easy it was to talk to him, which was rare for me since I tend to be super awkward around new people. Fast forward to our first year together, and everything seemed to be going great. We moved in together after 8 months, way too soon, I know. But his lease was ending, and financially it just made sense. Ryan worked odd jobs, but always struggled to hold one down. Either he'd get fired for constantly showing up late, or he'd quit because his bosses were idiots who didn't appreciate his talent. Red flag number 1 that I completely ignored. Over the years, Ryan would send me these long, furious voice messages about how his employers were all morons who didn't deserve him. He'd rant about how they treated him like he was incompetent, mocked his accent, or laughed at how he dressed. He was convinced that he was the only thing keeping their businesses afloat. Yet, they never gave him the recognition he deserved. I saved these messages in my favorites folder, and sometimes when they were particularly unhinged, I even downloaded them. I don't know why I kept them. Maybe deep down, I knew they'd be useful one day. He did the same thing with his parents, especially when they refused to lend him money. He'd send them the most awful voice messages, calling his dad a failure and saying his mom was too weak-minded to think for herself. One time, after they refused to help him with car payments, he sent a 5-minute rant about how they were nobodies who had accomplished nothing in life and how he was ashamed to be their son. I remember listening to that feeling deeply uncomfortable, but instead of addressing it, I just added it to my favorites folder. By year 2, I was covering nearly all our expenses. My job isn't glamorous, but it's stable, and I kept telling myself that relationships are about balance. Sometimes one person carries more weight until the other finds their footing. Ryan always promised things would get better soon. He just needed the right opportunity, and everything would turn around. 6 months ago, Ryan's car broke down. A flashy 2015 sports car that was way beyond his means. He was devastated, claiming it was his dream car and that he couldn't hold down a job without it. Like an idiot, I offered to help with the payments since without a car, he couldn't work consistently. That help quickly turned into me taking over the entire loan. $413.86 a month. A huge financial burden for me. I suppose I just wanted to be supportive and believe this would finally help him get on track. People kept asking me why I was paying for his car. Looking back, the answer is painfully obvious, but at the time I genuinely thought I was helping us both. We lived together, split expenses, and without transportation, he couldn't keep a stable job. And of course, he was ridiculously emotional about losing his baby. So, last night was our 3rd anniversary, and I had just made the final payment on his car last week. A massive sacrifice on my part. I booked us a reservation at a fancy restaurant downtown, the kind of place we had always talked about but could never afford, or rather, I could never afford to pay for both of us. I spent hours getting ready. New dress, perfect hair, everything. I arrived at 7 p.m. sharp for our reservation. Ryan texted that he was running late and told me to go ahead and get seated. By 7:30, I had already sent him 3 messages with no response. By 8 p.m., I called twice straight to voicemail. The waitress kept giving me these pitying glances, gently suggesting I could place an order or perhaps reschedule. I was beyond embarrassed but kept insisting, "Oh, he's just stuck in traffic," while anxiously checking my phone every 2 minutes. At 8:45, yes, almost 2 hours later, I was about to leave when Ryan finally strolled in with 4 of his friends. This wasn't some misunderstanding. He never mentioned bringing anyone else to our anniversary dinner. They swaggered over to my table, laughing, already a few drinks in. And then, I still can't believe this actually happened. Ryan turned to his friends and, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, said, "See, told you she'd still be here like a sad little puppy. 2 hours and she stayed." They all burst out laughing. One of his friends, Matt, who I always thought was a jerk, smirked and said, "Damn, you weren't kidding. She's trained well." More laughter. Ryan plopped down next to me, grabbed my face between his fingers like I was a child, and cooed, "This is why she's the best. Most girls would have left. But my girl, she pays my bills and waits around like a good little thing." Then he looked at me with a smug grin and said, Did you think this was going to be some romantic dinner? That's adorable." He leaned back in his chair and stretched. "We've got a poker game after this. I just needed to make sure you were still good for next month's payment first." When I didn't react, he roughly grabbed my chin and turned my face toward him. "Hello? Earth to Cali. God, you're pathetic sometimes. Say something." I didn't say anything. I just smiled and ordered another drink. And this morning, 78 missed calls and his stuff, well, let's just say he won't be needing that Mustang anymore. Or are you just going to sit there looking like a lost little puppy? His friends found this absolutely hilarious. Meanwhile, I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. 3 years together. I had just spent nearly $12,000 paying off his car. And this is what he really thought of me. This is how he described me to his friends. Like I was some desperate, spineless doormat he could walk all over. The server approached, looking visibly uncomfortable, and asked if we were ready to order. Somehow, I managed to smile and say, "Actually, I'll take another glass of wine first." Ryan and his friends ordered round after round of pricey appetizers and drinks, cracking jokes about how patient I was and how lucky he was to have found someone so understanding. Then Ryan gestured toward me and told the server, "No need to bring her anything, though. She's trying to slim down. Any more weight and we'll need a bigger table." Everyone laughed while I sat there humiliated. When my wine arrived, I took a slow sip, set the glass down carefully, and stood up, saying I needed to use the restroom. Ryan barely acknowledged me. He was too busy entertaining his friends with some story about how his boss was an idiot. I stared at my reflection in the mirror for a long time. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry yet. I was just done. 3 years of making excuses. 3 years of financially carrying this relationship. 3 years of ignoring obvious warning signs. And this was how he really saw me. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to throw my drink in his face. No. Ryan deserved something much more deliberate. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through all the saved voice messages, those long rants where he trashed his boss, calling him a fraud and an idiot, and the ones where he called his parents useless failures. I had dozens saved, some even backed up just in case. I sent a quick message to my friend Kate, who lived nearby, asking if she could pick me up in 10 minutes. Then I walked back to the table, smiled at everyone, and excused myself again, saying I needed to step outside for a quick work call. As I left, I stopped by the server, paid for my wines, just my wines, and let her know that the gentleman at my table would be covering the rest of the bill. Then I walked out, got into Kate's car, and blocked Ryan's number before he even realized I was gone. But here's the thing, I didn't just block his number. I had a plan. Over the years, I had helped Ryan with countless tech issues. That meant I had access to his email, cloud storage, banking app, since I was making those car payments, and even his social media accounts. And let's just say I know exactly how to share information in the most effective way possible. That was last night. This morning, I woke up to 78 missed calls from unknown numbers, probably his friends, and a flood of panicked messages from Ryan's work phone, begging me to talk. It was just a joke. What did you do? What did I do? Well, let's just say his boss and his parents received some very interesting voice messages this morning. And that car he loved so much? Turns out when you cancel a payment and provide the lender with evidence of fraud, they take repossession very seriously. More details soon. For now, I need to finish packing up his things so they can be properly delivered to their new home. The city dump. For those asking if this is real, unfortunately, yes. For those worried about legal issues, don't be. Everything I did was completely within my rights. I'll explain more in my next update. First update. A lot of you wanted to know what happened after I walked out of the restaurant. So here it is. After Kate picked me up, I was in this weird, eerie calm. I wasn't even crying, which is unusual for me. I literally tear up at sentimental commercials. I think I was just in shock. Kate kept asking if I was okay. I just stared out the window, thinking about all the voice messages I had saved from Ryan over the years. When we got to Kate's apartment, that's when it all hit me. I completely broke down. Full-on ugly crying, mascara running everywhere, the works. Kate didn't say anything. She just sat with me, brought over ice cream and cookie dough, my absolute favorite, and let me vent for 2 straight hours. She didn't even check her phone once, which honestly is peak friendship. Around midnight, my phone started blowing up with messages from Ryan. At first, he was furious. Where the hell did you go? And did you seriously just ditch me with the bill? Then his tone flipped. Suddenly, he was acting concerned. Are you okay? Just let me know you're safe. By 1 a.m., the long paragraph started, the classic gaslighting nonsense. It was just a joke. You're overreacting. I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. I ignored every single one. Instead, I made a list. I make lists for everything. It helps me think. This one was a list of all the accounts I had access to. His email. Left logged in on my laptop when I helped him job hunt. His Instagram, he constantly forgot his password. His iCloud. Set up on my laptop when his phone broke. His Spotify. I paid for our shared family plan. His banking app. I had access to make his car payments. Our shared streaming services. Again, all paid for by me. As I wrote it out, I realized how insane it was that he had practically handed over his entire digital life to me. But it also gave me a sense of control, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Edit. A few people are worried this might be illegal. Don't stress. He gave me these passwords and asked me to manage these accounts. I'm not hacking anything. The next morning, running on about 3 hours of sleep, I got started. First up, the car. I logged into his banking app and saw that my last payment hadn't fully cleared yet. It was still processing. Perfect. I immediately called the bank and explained the situation, that I had been manipulated into making payments for someone else's vehicle. The customer service rep was incredibly understanding. They asked for documentation, so I sent screenshots of texts where Ryan straight up admitted the car was his, not ours. I even mentioned that I had audio recordings of him bragging to his friends about how I was covering all his expenses. The rep put me on hold for what felt like forever. When they came back, they told me they'd reverse the payment while they investigated. While I was dealing with the bank, Ryan called 15 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. His messages shifted from furious to desperate and back again. One voicemail actually made me laugh. You're overreacting over a stupid joke and ruining our anniversary. Our anniversary. The one where he showed up 2 hours late with his friends and publicly humiliated me? That anniversary. Sure, Ryan. By noon, I decided to check some of his other accounts. Not to be malicious, just to see if there was anything else I needed to know. And oh, there was plenty. I found messages, dozens of texts between Ryan and his friends planning the entire restaurant stunt. They had been laughing about it for days. One message from his friend Matt read, "Can't wait to see her face when she realizes it's not actually an anniversary dinner. LOL. Ryan responded, "She'll probably just sit there and take it like always." But wait, it got worse. As I kept digging, I found emails with some woman named Amber from his job. Flirty messages, selfies, conversations dating back months. Nothing explicit, but definitely way past the line of just coworkers. One email from just last week had the subject line, "After work," with a single winky face emoji as the entire message. At that point, my hands were shaking. 3 years of my life, thousands of dollars, all the patience and support I had given him. And this is how he repaid me. I took a break and made coffee, spilling half of it because I was shaking so badly. Kate had already left for work but kept checking in over text. I just sent a quick, "I'm fine," and went back to my investigation. Next, I opened his Google Drive. Through his email, I found a folder labeled Voice Notes. It was mostly work-related recordings, and then I found one from 3 months ago. Ryan and Matt laughing, talking about how I was basically his sugar mama, and how he was keeping me around until something better came along. I had given him everything, and he had been laughing behind my back the entire time. So I made another list. 1. Send voice clips to his boss, the ones where he calls him incompetent. 2. Send voice clips to his parents, the ones where he calls them failures. 3. Cancel every shared subscription. 4. Pack up his stuff. 5. Change all my passwords and lock him out of my accounts. The voice messages were easy. I had them all saved in my Telegram favorites folder. Some of the messages were so shocking at the time that I had even downloaded them to my phone. I created a new Telegram account using a temporary number and sent the voice clips of Ryan insulting his boss directly to him. I found his contact info in Ryan's email. He had recently sent over his resume. Then I did the same with his parents. I forwarded the clips where he mocked them, called them failures, and made fun of their lack of success. I didn't add any commentary, just sent the recordings with a simple message. Thought you should hear how Ryan talks about you when you're not around. Next, I tackled all our shared accounts, streaming services, music, everything. Either I changed the passwords or canceled them entirely. It felt incredibly satisfying to systematically erase him from my digital life. Then came the harder part, packing up his things. Ryan had been living with me for over 2 years, which meant he had a lot of stuff in my apartment. I started with his clothes, shoving them into garbage bags without even folding them. A small act of defiance since I used to carefully fold all his laundry. 7 bags just of clothes and shoes. I was halfway through clearing out the bathroom when my doorbell rang. My heart stopped. I peeked through the peephole, Ryan. He was standing there looking all sad, holding a bouquet of flowers. Flowers. Like that would change anything. I didn't answer. Instead, I backed away from the door and sat silently in the hallway, trying not to make a sound. The doorbell rang again and again. Then he started knocking, then calling my phone, which was already on silent. When that didn't work, he started yelling through the door, "Stop acting childish. We need to talk like adults." He kept at it for at least 20 minutes. Eventually, one of my neighbors must have threatened to call building security because he finally left, but not before slipping a note under my door. "We need to talk. I'm sorry about last night. It was supposed to be a joke. Please call me." A joke. Being publicly humiliated by the person who's supposed to love you is not a joke. I went back to packing his things with renewed motivation. By 6 p.m., everything of his was packed into garbage bags and stacked by the door. 15 bags in total. 3 years of my life reduced to 15 garbage bags. That's when my phone pinged with an email notification. It was from the bank. They had approved the payment reversal. The money would be back in my account within 3 to 5 business days. I actually did a little victory dance in my living room. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone lit up with another message from Ryan. "Why is there a tow truck outside my apartment? What did you do to my car?" I didn't reply, but I did smile a lot. Then, At around 8 p.m., my phone basically exploded with notifications. Turns out Ryan's boss had received the voice messages and immediately called him in for a meeting. From the flood of increasingly frantic texts Ryan sent me afterward, it did not go well. Apparently, his boss had already been suspicious about some issues at work, and hearing Ryan call him an incompetent idiot who couldn't find his own ass with both hands was the final nail in the coffin. Ryan was placed on probation pending further review. And his parents? They heard the recordings, too. They called him. His mom was in tears, demanding to know why he would say such awful things about them. His dad refused to even speak to him. By 10 p.m., Ryan was sending long, frantic messages about how I had ruined his life and how one stupid joke didn't justify everything I had done. He kept flipping between begging for forgiveness and threatening me with legal action. I saved every single text, but I didn't respond. I crashed at Kate's place again that night. Not because I was sad, but because honestly, I wasn't sure if Ryan would show up drunk or do something stupid. But when I woke up the next morning, I felt lighter. For the first time in years, I had actually stood up for myself. No more making excuses for him. No more waiting around for him to change. The next step, figuring out what to do with all his stuff, 15 garbage bags of it. I wasn't about to store them in my apartment indefinitely, and there was no way I was meeting up with him to return them. That's when Kate casually dropped a suggestion that made me gasp. What if we just took it to the dump? At first, it seemed extreme. Even after everything, I wasn't sure I could literally throw away all his belongings. But then I thought about it. The emails, the planned humiliation, the flirting with Amber, the 3 years of me supporting him while he laughed behind my back. So this morning, Kate borrowed her brother's truck and we loaded it up. Before leaving, I did a quick final check through the bags just in case there was something irreplaceable, like a passport or a sentimental family heirloom. I'm not a monster. Then we drove straight to the local dump and, well, we dumped it. Not going to lie, watching the garbage truck crush all his overpriced clothes and useless gaming collectibles was therapeutic. As we were driving back, my phone rang. An unknown number. I already knew who it was. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. They took my car and I need to grab my stuff from your place. I have nothing to wear to work tomorrow. Too late, Ryan. Way too late. Now I'm back at my apartment. It feels weirdly empty without all of his things, but also so much more peaceful. I changed the locks today. My landlord was completely understanding when I explained the situation. I know some people might think what I did was a lot, but after 3 years of putting him first, of being treated like an afterthought, of paying his bills while he mocked me to his friends, it felt like exactly what he deserved. And the fallout? Still happening. His friend Matt has been blowing up my phone with angry messages. And apparently Amber from work is now super confused about why Ryan is suddenly ghosting her. The dominoes are still falling. For those asking about legal issues, don't worry. I checked with a friend who knows this stuff. The car was in his name, and I had been making the payments as gifts, which means I was never legally responsible for it. And before anyone asks, no, I didn't throw away everything. I kept a few important documents I found while packing. I'm not that petty. You all are amazing. The support on my last post was overwhelming, and so many of you wanted another update. So, here's everything that's happened in the past week since Ryan's belongings found their new home at the city dump. The morning after Kate and I got rid of his stuff, I woke up to this weird scratching sound at my apartment door. It wasn't quite knocking, but it was obvious someone was there. I checked my doorbell cam. Thank God I installed one last year after a package thief situation, and saw Ryan sitting on the floor outside my door. He looked completely wrecked. Hair messed up, wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago, hunched over and writing something. I turned up the volume and realized he was sliding notes under my door one by one. I tiptoed to the door, still in my pajamas, and saw 7 little pieces of paper on the floor. Every single one was a desperate plea. Please talk to me. I need my stuff for work. My boss is going to fire me. My parents won't answer my calls. My car is gone. What did you tell everyone? And the last one. I'm sleeping in Matt's car. Please answer. For maybe 3 seconds I felt a tiny bit bad. Then I remembered sitting alone in that restaurant for 2 hours while he and his friends planned to humiliate me. Nope, not today, Satan. I quietly collected the notes, evidence just in case, and went to make coffee. And because life has a twisted sense of humor, my coffee machine decided that was the perfect moment to die mid-brew. Of course, I had to resort to my emergency instant coffee stash, the one I keep for power outages. The day was already off to a fantastic start. While sipping my sad excuse for caffeine, I checked my phone. 83 missed calls, texts from numbers I didn't recognize, and 17 voicemails. Ryan had been busy. I was about to delete everything when I noticed a voicemail from his mom. That was unexpected. I decided to listen. She sounded upset but not angry. She actually thanked me for opening her eyes to how her son really treated people. She said she had no idea he was capable of this and was ashamed that she had raised someone who would treat a partner that way. I saved the voicemail but deleted everything else. A lot of you have asked if I called her back. Not yet. I'm still processing everything and, honestly, I don't want to get pulled into family drama. Maybe someday. Later that day, my doorbell rang again. I checked the camera. Ryan was gone, but his friend Matt was standing there. Great. I didn't answer, but Matt started talking anyway, knowing I could hear him through the door. He said Ryan was destroyed, that I needed to stop this revenge game because I had taken things too far. Then he said something that made me pause. He claimed he had never been at the restaurant that night and had no idea what Ryan had done until afterward. That was a bold-faced lie. I literally watched him laugh at Ryan's jokes about me. Was he actually trying to gaslight me now? I checked the doorbell cam footage later and realized Matt had been recording the entire time. Sneaky little jerk was trying to bait me into saying something incriminating. Nice try. After he left, I packed an overnight bag and went to Kate's. My apartment felt weirdly empty and every little sound made me jump. On the way, I checked my bank account because anxiety and saw the car payment refund had already processed. That was fast. These things usually take forever, so I actually did a little happy dance on the sidewalk, probably looking like a total weirdo to everyone passing by. Totally worth it. At Kate's, we ordered takeout and went through everything that had happened systematically. She helped me map out the events, and for the first time I saw just how much I had actually gone through. For a moment, I wondered if I had taken things too far. Kate must have seen the hesitation on my face because she grabbed my phone, pulled up the screenshots of Ryan's emails planning my humiliation, and made me read them out loud. Nope, I hadn't gone too far. Not even close. That night, I got curious about how effective my little Telegram operation had been. I made a new Instagram account, don't worry, random name, stock photo, and looked up Ryan's profile. It was public, of course, because he's building a personal brand. His words, not mine. His latest post was a long, rambling non-apology about how he had made mistakes and hurt people who didn't deserve it. Classic vague booking, no actual accountability. The comments were a mess. Some of his friends were asking what happened. Some girl, probably Amber, had commented, "Call me," with a crying face emoji. His cousin had written, "Grandma's asking why you're not answering her calls." While I was totally not stalking, my phone buzzed with a text from Damon, a mutual friend. "Can we talk?" Not taking sides, just confused. I ignored it. Then he sent another one. "Ryan told everyone you hacked his accounts and stole from him. But that doesn't sound like you." "Excuse me, what?" I called Damon immediately. He picked up on the first ring, sounding shocked I actually called. What he told me was unbelievable. Apparently, Ryan had been telling everyone a completely different version of events. According to him, I had gone psycho after a tiny joke at dinner, hacked his accounts, stolen money, and destroyed all his possessions out of pure female hysteria. His actual words. He was painting himself as the innocent guy dealing with a crazy ex-girlfriend on a revenge rampage. I took a deep breath and asked Damon one question. "Do you actually want to know what really happened?" When he said yes, I didn't hold back. I told him everything. The 2-hour wait, the public humiliation, the planned emails, the voice messages about his boss and parents, the fact that I had been paying for his car while he mocked me. Then I played him the voice clip where Ryan called me his personal ATM. There was a long silence. Then Damon just said, Holy sh*t. He's been lying to all of us. Ryan had been trash-talking me to his friends for months, painting me as controlling and unstable. None of it was true, but they had believed him because, well, he was their friend. Damon apologized for not reaching out sooner and asked if he could tell the others the truth. I told him to go ahead. The next morning, I went back to my apartment, Kate by my side just in case Ryan was lurking. The hallway was clear, but there were more notes under my door. Angrier this time. You're ruining my life. You'll regret this. And my personal favorite. I know what you did with my stuff. Yeah, I took it to the dump. That wasn't exactly a secret. Later that day, I got an email from HR at Ryan's workplace. They were investigating a situation and asked if I would provide relevant information. I forwarded them the worst voice messages where Ryan insulted his boss and admitted to slacking off. That night, Ryan posted something vague about unemployment in America. Draw your own conclusions. Then, while grocery shopping, I literally ran into Ryan's mom. She wasn't angry. She thanked me for sending the voice clips, saying she and Ryan's dad had been financially supporting him without realizing he was mocking them. Turns out they had put the down payment on his car and co-signed a loan. She apologized for raising someone who would treat a partner that way. I didn't have the heart to tell her about the emails or the other girl. When I got home, there was a package outside my door. No notes, just a Starbucks gift card and a note from my neighbor thanking me for getting rid of Ryan. That night, I changed my phone number and locked down my social media. Then, this morning, I got the final confirmation. The car loan was terminated, the vehicle repossessed. The loan was officially Ryan's problem. Now, Kate asked if I felt bad. I thought about it and realized I didn't. Not even a little bit. Instead of paying for his car, I'm putting that money into my savings, and I'm thinking about adopting a cat. Ryan always claimed he was allergic. He wasn't. As for Ryan, the last I heard from Damon, he's still crashing on Matt's couch, still unemployed. His car is gone, his belongings are gone, and his reputation is in complete shambles. All because he couldn't resist publicly humiliating the one person who had been supporting him for years. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, I guess. Thanks for all the support, everyone. To answer a few common questions. No, I don't think I'll ever speak to Ryan again, not even for closure. I checked with a friend who knows legal stuff, and everything I did was completely within my rights. I didn't keep anything of his except important documents, which I'll be mailing to his parents. And yes, I'm seriously considering changing the locks again just in case he made copies. I'll update again if anything major happens, but hopefully this chapter of my life is officially closed. For those asking about how I sent the voice messages, it wasn't anything complicated. I literally just forwarded the Telegram voice messages he had sent me to the people he had been trash-talking. Telegram makes it ridiculously easy to forward messages or save them and send them in a new chat. No hacking necessary. Final update. Now for the final update, because it's been 6 months since all of this went down, and a lot of you have been asking how things turned out. So here's the closure post. First off, I moved about a month after everything happened. Even though Ryan was gone, my old apartment just didn't feel right anymore. My lease was ending anyway, so I found a smaller but way cozier place across town. Costs a bit more, but honestly, the peace of mind is worth every penny. Also, I got a cat. Her name is Cammy. She's a sassy little tortoiseshell, and for some reason, she absolutely hates men. My brother came over to help me put together a bookshelf, and she hissed at him the entire time. But every night, she curls up on my pillow and purrs like a lawn mower. Soul sister energy. Financially, things are looking up, too. I've been putting all the money I used to spend on Ryan's car payment into savings, and it's already added up to over $2,300. I'm using some of it to take a solo trip to Portland next month. I've never traveled alone before and I'm nervous, but also so excited. Now for the Ryan updates, because I know that's what most of you are here for. About a month after my last post, Ryan lost his job completely. Not because of the voice messages I sent, though those definitely didn't help, but because he kept showing up late and apparently had a full-on meltdown in a team meeting. I know this because his mom still texts me occasionally. We've developed this weird dynamic. It's not exactly a friendship, but there's definitely a sense of mutual respect now. Ryan moved back in with his parents for a while, but according to his mom, that didn't last long. He refused to follow house rules, kept coming home drunk at 3 a.m., never helped out, and was generally just Ryan. So, his parents finally gave him an ultimatum. Get a job and contribute or move out. He chose to move out. Now he's apparently bouncing from couch to couch, though his friend circle has dramatically shrunk. And his car? The loan company sold it at auction. And get this, it sold for less than what was still owed on it. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving guy. So now, on top of everything else, Ryan has to keep making payments on a car he doesn't even own anymore. His mom told me he actually tried to go after me legally for it, but his own lawyer shut that down immediately. Since the payments I made were considered gifts and I had actual evidence of his fraud, he didn't have a case. Meanwhile, Amber, the girl from his work, is now officially his girlfriend. Though, from what I've heard through mutual friends, it's already a complete mess. She caught him talking to other women on Tinder while they were together but took him back anyway. They've already broken up and gotten back together 4 times. Poor girl is exactly where I was 3 years ago, and honestly, I really hope she figures it out faster than I did. Oh, and I almost forgot the weirdest part of this entire saga. 3 months ago, Ryan's brother reached out to me on Instagram. We had met maybe twice in the entire time I was with Ryan, so this came completely out of nowhere. He started off apologizing for his brother's behavior, which, fine, normal enough. But then he asked me out. I just sat there staring at my phone like, "Sir, read the room." I politely declined, then blocked him. Some people truly have zero self-awareness. Now that I've had some distance, I actually sat down and calculated approximately how much money I spent on Ryan over our 3 years together. Between the car payments, covering rent when he was between jobs, paying for most of our dates, and the many loans that were never repaid, the total came to over $30,000. That's a down payment on a house. I could have traveled the world. I could have paid off my student loans. Instead, I funded the lifestyle of someone who looked me in the face and called me a pathetic puppy. Some people in the comments have said I went too far by getting him fired and exposing him to his parents. First of all, I didn't get him fired. His own words got him fired. Second, if you're still defending him after he spent days planning and executing a public humiliation of the one person who supported him for years, maybe take a moment and ask yourself why that is. And for those wondering if I'd ever consider talking to him again for closure, the answer is no. I don't need to hear his excuses. I don't need his side of the story. My closure happened the moment I walked out of that restaurant 6 months ago. Everything since then has just been confirmation that I made the right choice. So that's where things stand. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And if they call you a pathetic puppy, take their car. Dump their stuff at the local landfill. That's just a joke. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Thanksgiving dinner has always been a weird tradition in my family. Not weird because of the food or the people. We're not the kind of family that deep fries a turkey in the backyard or starts food fights over cranberry sauce. No, it's weird because it always feels like a performance. It is a performance of what a functional family should look like with polite smiles, clinking glasses, and scripted jokes that everyone's heard 100 times before. But beneath it all, there's this constant hum of tension, like everyone's just pretending. Like we're all reading from a script none of us really believe in anymore. My name's Spencer. I'm 33. I live alone in a 1-bedroom condo I bought a few years ago about 40 minutes outside the city. No kids, no wife, just me, a decent job in software development, and a cat named Milo who's better company than most humans I know. I guess that makes me the odd one out in my family. My younger brother, Jason, is married with 3 kids. My older sister, Melissa, has 2 teenage daughters and a husband who owns a construction company. They both live in the same suburb as my parents. While I've always been more removed, and that's never really sat well with my dad. He's old school. He worked in manufacturing for 35 years before getting laid off just before retirement. He's the kind of guy who thinks being a man means having a family, mowing the lawn every Saturday, and teaching your kids to ride a bike. I didn't do any of that. I stayed single, built a quiet life, and invested in tech stocks instead of a riding mower. Ever since I turned 30, he's made it his personal mission to remind me in subtle and not-so-subtle ways that he thinks I've failed at life. It's not like I didn't try to connect with him over the years. I offered to take him to a few tech conferences, thinking he might be interested in what I do for a living. He declined every time, saying he wasn't into all that computer garbage. I helped Melissa's kids get laptops for school, and when I tried explaining what kind of specs to look for, he cut me off with a joke about nerd talk. He'd smile while he said it. Sure, but there was always a bite behind it, and I always swallowed it down, thinking it wasn't worth starting anything over. Every year I tell myself I'll skip Thanksgiving. Every year I drive over anyway. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of habit. Maybe because part of me still hoped it'd be different. But this year felt different from the start. Melissa hosted it this time. She has the biggest house, one of those new builds with a 2-story foyer and an open-concept kitchen that looks like something out of a home renovation show. I showed up with a bottle of wine and a tray of stuffed mushrooms. I knew nobody but me would eat. The second I walked in, I could already feel it, that underlying hum of judgment. Jason raised his eyebrows when he saw I came alone again, like it was some sort of surprise. Melissa gave me a quick hug, then went back to bustling around the kitchen like a contestant on a cooking show. And my dad, he was parked in the living room watching football and sipping his second beer. He barely looked up when I walked in. Dinner was at 6 o'clock. We all gathered around the big table Melissa had decorated with pumpkins, candles, and those little name cards like she was hosting a magazine shoot. The food was great, credit where it's due, but the conversation was the same old script. Jason talked about his son's soccer league and how he was already being scouted at 9 years old. Melissa bragged about her daughter getting into some honors program. Everyone clapped politely. Then it came to me. So, Spencer, Melissa said, topping off her wine. Still working from home? Yeah. I nodded, swallowing a bite of turkey. Same company, just got a promotion, actually. I'm leading a new project starting next quarter. That's nice, she said with a tight smile. Must be nice not having to worry about babysitters or school pickups. That stung a little more than I expected. I forced a smile and took another sip of wine. I've gotten used to those little comments, those polite digs masked as casual remarks. It's always the same undertone. You wouldn't understand, Spencer. You don't have a family. I was just about to change the subject when my dad leaned back in his chair, rubbing his stomach like he was already too full. Then he dropped the line that would stick in my head long after the plates were cleared. You know, he said with a smirk I've seen too many times. You're a grown man with no family. What a failure. At first I thought I misheard him, but then Jason laughed. Melissa tried to hide her grin behind her glass. Even Mom gave a small, embarrassed chuckle like she didn't want to be the only one not in on the joke. I didn't laugh. I didn't even flinch. I just looked at him. Really looked at him. His face was red from the beer, his shirt stained with a bit of gravy, and that smug expression of his. It hit me all at once. The years of comments, the dismissive looks, the way he never really saw me unless it was to make me smaller. I felt this slow, creeping heat build in my chest, but I didn't let it boil over. Instead, I smiled calm, collected, almost amused. Funny? I said, wiping my mouth with my napkin. Coming from someone whose rent I've paid for the last 6 years. The laughter stopped like someone had yanked the cord out of the wall. The silence that followed was so sharp you could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the next room. My dad blinked, the smirk vanishing from his face. Jason stopped mid-chew. Melissa's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. Even my mom looked confused. I didn't say anything else. I let the silence sit. Let it breathe. Let it grow. Then I added, that ends tonight. And that was when everything started to unravel. The silence after I said those words was heavy. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just heavy. Like a weighted blanket soaked in cold water. Everyone at the table was processing it in their own awkward way. Jason stared at me like I just slapped our dad in the face. Melissa blinked in confusion, probably wondering if I was bluffing. My mom opened her mouth, closed it, then looked down at her plate. And my dad, he just squinted at me like maybe he'd misheard or maybe his hearing was finally starting to go. I almost hoped he had, for his sake. But I meant what I said, every word. The truth is my parents have been living in the same old house since I was a teenager. It's not a bad place. 2 stories, decent backyard, a little outdated, but nothing falling apart. After Dad got laid off at 59, he never really recovered financially. He applied for a few jobs here and there, but deep down I think he felt humiliated. Mom picked up part-time work at a local gift shop to cover groceries and small expenses, but the mortgage and utilities were a different story. 6 years ago, I stepped in quietly without any announcement, without conditions. They were a few months behind on mortgage payments, and I got a call from my mom one night asking if I could help. Just this once. I looked at my bank account. I looked at the number she gave me. Then I paid it. And the next month and the one after that. Eventually, I just set up autopay. I told myself it was temporary, just until they got back on their feet. They never did. They never thanked me either. Not really. It became this unspoken arrangement, like a subscription they assumed came with no cancellation policy. I didn't mind at first. I was making good money, living alone, no big expenses. But the longer it went on, the more I noticed something that gnawed at me. The entitlement. They never asked how I was doing financially. Never once offered to pay back a dime. My dad never even pretended to be grateful. Instead, he kept treating me like a disappointment. Like the fact that I didn't have a wife and 3 kids automatically made me lesser. And tonight, after all those years of quiet support, he had the nerve to mock me. To say I was a failure in front of the whole family like I was some punchline. No. So I said it. That ends tonight. My dad slowly leaned forward, placing both his hands on the edge of the table. His voice was quieter now, lower, controlled. What did you say? I didn't blink. You heard me. Melissa set her glass down a little too hard. Spencer, are you seriously saying you're going to stop helping them? Over a joke. A joke. I repeated, keeping my voice level. Sure, let's call it a joke. Just like when Dad said I was probably one of those people who marry their computer last year, or when he asked if I was too scared of real life to have kids, or when he said my cat was the only legacy I'd ever leave behind. Jason leaned back, arms crossed. Come on, man. He didn't mean anything by it. That's just how he talks. Right? I said, nodding slowly. And this is just how I respond now. Mom finally spoke, her voice soft but frantic. Spencer, honey, can we not do this here? It's Thanksgiving, please. But it was already done. I stood up and carried my plate to the sink. My appetite was gone. As I ran some water over it, I heard my dad mutter something under his breath. I didn't catch it, but I caught the tone. I decided not to ask. I left after dessert. No hugs, no goodbyes, just a stiff walk to the front door. The sound of muted voices behind me, and the sharp cold air slapping me in the face as I stepped outside. When I got home, I sat in the dark living room for a long time. Milo curled up beside me, purring gently. I wasn't angry, not exactly. It was something heavier, an exhaustion that sat deep in my chest like I'd been holding up a roof for years. And tonight, I finally let go. The next morning, my phone blew up. First, a text from Melissa. You need to apologize to Dad. You completely ruined dinner. Then one from Jason. Hope you're happy. Mom's been crying all morning. And finally, a voicemail from Mom herself. Spencer, I don't know what's gotten into you. We've been through so much. Your father's old-fashioned, yes, but he loves you in his own way. I'm worried about how we're going to make ends meet. Please call me back. I didn't reply. That weekend, I got an email from the mortgage company. Since I was listed as the primary payer for the automatic deductions, they notified me that the upcoming payment had failed due to account changes. I canceled it. It wasn't some impulsive revenge play. I'd been thinking about it for months. The only reason I kept paying was guilt. Guilt that maybe I was being ungrateful. Guilt that maybe I owed them something for raising me. Guilt that maybe I was a failure and this was my way of compensating. But that guilt evaporated the second they laughed at me. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Too quiet. No calls, no texts, radio silence. I figured maybe they were processing. Maybe they were scrambling to figure out finances. Maybe they were planning to never speak to me again. A small part of me hoped they were. But then Melissa invited me to her daughter's birthday party. It felt like a trap, but I went anyway. It was a backyard thing. Tents, cupcakes, a clown, the whole deal. Kids running around screaming. Melissa was polite but cold when she greeted me. Jason didn't say much at all. And Dad, he acted like nothing had happened. Just sat in a lawn chair with a paper plate full of barbecue and a beer, chatting with one of Melissa's neighbors like it was any other Saturday. I kept my distance, chatted with a couple of the kids, gave my niece a nice gift. Books, of course. Melissa probably rolled her eyes the second I walked away. Then halfway through the party, I overheard Jason and Dad talking near the grill. I wasn't eavesdropping intentionally. They were just loud. Jason said, "So, what's the plan now? You going to ask Spencer to turn it back on?" And Dad laughed. "Nah, he'll cave. He always caves." Jason chuckled. "Maybe. Or maybe he's finally grown a pair." Dad scoffed. "Spencer? Please. He's a soft little boy in a grown man's body. Always has been." I froze. The conversation moved on. I didn't. I stood there by the fence, gripping my drink like it was the only thing anchoring me to the ground. I don't know what I felt in that moment. Rage, shame, sadness. It was like all three hit me at once. I left without saying goodbye. That night, I called the mortgage company and had my name removed from the account. They said it would take a few days, but once finalized, they'd be fully responsible for their payments. I felt a weight lift off me. Not all of it, but enough. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that they took the hint, that they learned something. But of course they didn't. 2 weeks later, Melissa showed up at my door. She didn't text, didn't call, just showed up on a Sunday morning holding a binder and a forced smile. "I need to talk to you," she said. I let her in. She sat on my couch, flipped open the binder, and launched into a well-rehearsed speech. Apparently, the family had come up with a shared financial responsibility plan. Jason would contribute some monthly support, Melissa and her husband would cover utilities, and they wanted me to resume covering the mortgage, just until things stabilized. I stared at her. "Melissa, I already said I'm done. This isn't just about you, Spencer. It's about Mom and Dad, about family. No, it's about control." She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean? You all act like helping them is my obligation. Like I've somehow failed you all by setting a boundary, but I never signed up to be their safety net. And I'm tired of being treated like the family ATM that nobody respects." She closed the binder a little too quickly. "Well," she said, standing, "don't come crying to us when you're old and alone." I smiled. "I won't." After she left, I stood by the window and watched her drive away, my heart pounding with something that felt like peace and something else I couldn't quite name. But that peace didn't last long. 3 days later, I got a notification from my bank. A large unauthorized withdrawal had been attempted from my account, flagged and denied. I checked the details. It was the old mortgage payment amount. I hadn't just canceled it. I'd removed my bank information, but apparently someone had tried to use the routing numbers from an old statement. Someone who had access to my personal documents. Someone like my father. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched, and that's when I knew this wasn't just about disrespect anymore. It was betrayal. I didn't move for a while after seeing the fraud alert. I just sat there on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, blinking at the screen like maybe it would rewrite itself, but it didn't. It was real. Someone had tried to pull money directly from my account using old routing and account numbers linked to the mortgage. And there were only a handful of people who ever had access to those numbers. All of them lived in that house. All of them shared that last name. And suddenly, it felt like everything. Every act of generosity, every quiet deposit, every bill I'd paid without complaint, had been spit on. The next morning, I filed a fraud report with my bank. They took it seriously, asked the usual questions, and froze the account for safety. When they asked if I suspected someone specific, I paused. I didn't say my father's name. I just said, a family member. It's complicated. And it was because no matter how angry I was, part of me still didn't want to believe it. Still didn't want to fully accept that my own family would stoop that low. But then I checked my email and found a message from Melissa. I heard you reported a bank issue. Look, this is getting out of hand. We're just trying to keep things afloat. You could have just talked to Dad instead of making it a legal thing. Now you've got Mom worried sick again. I stared at the email, reread it, felt my heart sink. She knew. She knew what he did. And instead of outrage or embarrassment or even a simple apology, I got that. A guilt trip, a veiled scolding, like I was the problem for not playing along with their little scheme. That was the moment I stopped questioning. That was the moment the last thread snapped. I didn't respond to her email. I didn't call anyone. I didn't explain. I just closed the laptop and sat back in my chair, feeling more alone than I had in a long time. That week, I didn't sleep much. I stopped answering messages from friends, skipped meals, and just went through the motions at work. Camera off during Zoom calls, mic muted. My code started slipping, little bugs, missed deadlines. My manager noticed. She reached out, asked if everything was okay. I told her I was just overwhelmed. She said I should take a few days. I didn't argue. I thought about driving somewhere, just packing a bag and disappearing for a while. But I didn't even know where I'd go. I didn't want a vacation. I wanted a reset. One night, I sat on my couch, Milo curled up in my lap, and just let it all out. The anger, the sadness, the confusion, the deep gnawing ache of realizing that the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had placed conditions on everything. That their love came with strings. That maybe, just maybe, it was never really love to begin with, just expectation. I thought I'd feel better after crying. I didn't, but it helped me see something clearly. I'd built my life around trying to earn their approval, and I was done. The next morning, I woke up early, before the sun. I brewed some coffee, fed Milo, and opened a fresh notebook. I titled the first page, What I Want. Not what they wanted, not what I thought I should want, just me. I sat in silence for a long time before I started writing. Peace, independence, real connection, creative work, meaning, trust. It wasn't a long list, but it was mine. That was the beginning. The first thing I did was lock down every financial account I had. New bank, new passwords, two-factor authentication on everything. I pulled my credit report, flagged everything for fraud alerts, and put a freeze on all new lines of credit. Took days to set everything up properly. But once it was done, I felt like I'd taken the first step back toward control. Then I went through my apartment room by room and started getting rid of everything that weighed me down. Old files, clutter, useless tech gadgets I bought during random dopamine binges. I sold what I could, donated what I couldn't. Felt good, cleansing, like shedding dead skin. Next came work. I scheduled a one-on-one with my manager, Sarah. She was one of the few people I trusted. When we got on the call, she immediately asked how I was doing. Honestly, I said, pretty bad, but I'm working on it. She nodded slowly. You've been one of our top devs for years, Spencer. If you need time, take it. We'll make it work. I told her I didn't want time off. I wanted purpose. We ended up talking for over an hour. I told her I wanted to take on a new role, something more creative, more collaborative, something that reminded me why I got into software in the first place. She listened. She got it. A week later, she transferred me to a new team building an educational platform for low-income schools. It didn't pay more, but it fed something deeper. Outside of work, I started rebuilding my life in small ways. I joined a local running group. I'd never been a runner, but I figured I needed something to get me out of the apartment and into fresh air. The first run nearly killed me. I was out of breath in 5 minutes, but I went back the next week. And the week after that, I took a pottery class. Something about shaping clay with my hands felt grounding. The first few pieces looked like deformed blobs, but I didn't care. I was doing something just for me. No goal, no approval, just the joy of creation. I reached out to an old friend from college, Naomi. We used to talk almost daily back in the day, but life pulled us in different directions. She was surprised to hear from me, but happy. We met up for coffee, talked for hours, laughed like no time had passed. That one reconnect sparked something in me. I wasn't alone. I just needed to look in the right places. I started documenting everything, journaling, recording little voice notes, even sketching now and then. Not because I thought I was good at it, but because I wanted to understand myself better. For the first time in a long time, I was living on my own terms. But even as I rebuilt, the shadow of my family loomed. They hadn't contacted me since the bank incident. No apologies, no explanations, just radio silence. Part of me expected it. Part of me still hoped anyone would reach out and try to make it right. Then a month later it came. A letter, handwritten. No return address. It was from my mom. Spencer, I don't know what's happening anymore. I feel like everything's falling apart. Your father says you're being dramatic, but I don't think you are. I think you're hurting, and I hate that I didn't see it. We've made a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes. I don't know how to fix any of this, but I wanted you to know that I love you. Not because of what you do for us. Not because of money. Just because you're my son. I hope you write back or call or visit. Love, Mom. I stared at that letter for a long time, read it twice, then folded it carefully and slid it into a drawer. It meant something, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. Because while my mom might have seen the cracks, my father was still pretending there was no damage, no consequences, no betrayal. And as long as he did, nothing would change. I was healing, growing, rebuilding, but I hadn't forgotten. Because the truth was still sitting there in the background, waiting. They crossed the line, and the moment would come soon when I'd make sure they finally understood what it cost them. I didn't reply to the letter. I kept it, though not out of sentiment, but because it marked a turning point. The moment they blinked first. The moment the house of cards they'd built, this illusion of unity, respect, and family loyalty, finally started to collapse. For weeks, I kept moving forward. Waking early, running 3 times a week, working on the education platform project with a team that actually respected me, rebuilding friendships, and slowly expanding the narrow little world I'd lived in for years. Every part of my life was improving except one. That one corner of my mind that still burned with the memory of my father's voice. He'll cave. He always caves. That phrase looped like static in the back of my head, taunting me in the quiet moments. It wasn't just the insult. It was the truth behind it, because he wasn't wrong. Not before. I had caved again and again. I paid. I showed up. I swallowed my pride and pretended everything was fine while they chipped away at my dignity. I didn't push back because I didn't think I was allowed to, because I believed that if I just kept giving, eventually they'd see me differently. They never did. And now I was done waiting for them to learn. They were going to feel it. I didn't want to go nuclear out of impulse. I wanted it to matter. I wanted the moment to stick, not just for them, but for me. I wanted to make a clean cut, a declaration, something they couldn't ignore or laugh off as another one of Spencer's moods. So I started planning. The first step was understanding exactly how far the damage went. I pulled every financial record I had connected to them, mortgage statements, utility payments, insurance, tax assessments. I combed through 6 years of transfers, payments, paper trails, and what I found hit me harder than I expected. Over $112,000. That's how much I'd poured into that house. Not counting groceries or the emergency credit card charges Mom made on my account when the fridge broke down or the car needed repairs. Just mortgage and utilities. Just the basics. I sat with that number for a long time. Not because I wanted the money back. I knew I'd never see a cent of it, but because it made something undeniable. I was the reason they still had a roof over their heads. I wasn't a failure. I was the one keeping their failure from being public. And now I was done hiding it. The second step was checking the deed. I had a suspicion, but I wanted to confirm it. I logged into the county assessor's site and looked up the property, my parents' address, and there it was in black and white. Joint ownership between my mom and dad. No mention of me. No legal tie. For 6 years, I paid for a house I had no legal claim to. I might as well have been donating to a stranger. That was the last thread I needed to cut. The next day, I scheduled a meeting with an attorney, not to sue them. I wasn't interested in dragging it through court, but to make sure every possible financial link between us was severed. I wanted to be free. I gave her the full rundown. Every document, every email, every connection. She listened, took notes, asked the occasional clarifying question, then leaned back in her chair with a look that was both empathetic and impressed. "You've already done most of the work," she said. "We'll get the rest squared away in a few days. You've got nothing tying you to them now except history." That's when I told her the last part of the plan, because I didn't just want to walk away. I wanted to leave a mark. "You're within your rights," she said when I finished. "Just be sure you're ready for what happens afterward." "I am," I said, and I meant it. The next step, reclaim the narrative. They'd spent years painting me as the weird, reclusive older brother who never quite fit in. The one who couldn't hold a conversation at family dinners without making it awkward. The one who was too sensitive, too quiet, too distant. And even when I was the one paying their bills, they made sure everyone thought I was barely holding my life together. That ended now. I started reaching out, not to stir up drama, but to tell the truth. I messaged my cousin Leah, one of the few relatives I actually liked. We hadn't talked much over the years, but I remembered her defending me once at a barbecue when Dad made a joke about me being a stay-at-home bachelor. "Hey Leah," I wrote. "Hope you're doing okay. Just wanted to clear something up in case you heard the wrong version of what happened last month." I explained briefly but honestly what had gone down. I didn't insult anyone. I didn't exaggerate. I just laid out the facts. How long I'd supported my parents, how little appreciation I got in return, and what finally pushed me to walk away. She replied within the hour. "Spencer, wow, I had no idea. I always thought something felt off at those family things. I'm really sorry. You didn't deserve that. Thank you for telling me." That gave me the green light. I reached out to a few other relatives, quiet ones, the kind who kept their heads down at holidays. Aunts, uncles, a couple of second cousins I barely knew but who'd always been polite to me in passing. I didn't send them essays, just the truth. Most of them responded with understanding. Some even shared their own experiences. Times my father had steamrolled them, times they'd seen how Jason and Melissa were treated with open favoritism. It was like lifting a curtain I didn't know had been there. And behind it, a whole chorus of people who'd silently noticed what I thought only I had seen. It didn't take long for word to spread. I never asked anyone to choose sides. I didn't need to. The final phase of the setup took shape 2 weeks later. Melissa was hosting Mom's birthday party. She made it clear I wasn't officially invited, but that I could stop by if I wanted to make things right. The message came through Leah, who decided to act as a neutral party. Apparently, Mom wanted me there. Dad didn't. Jason was still upset. Melissa was cautious. It was the perfect opportunity. I told Leah I'd come, but I didn't show up empty-handed. I brought 3 manila envelopes, each sealed and labeled. One for Melissa, one for Jason, one for my father. Inside each envelope was a simple, professionally printed packet. A summary of financial contributions I'd made to the household over the years. Dates, amounts, bank statements, proof. No fluff, no emotion, just facts. Each packet ended with a letter, not an angry rant, not a guilt trip, just a clear, calm statement of my decision to end all financial and emotional support, followed by this line. "If you choose to see me as the villain in your version of the story, that's your right. But I'm done shrinking myself to make you feel bigger." I arrived halfway through the party. People were milling around the yard, kids running through sprinklers, pop music playing on a Bluetooth speaker. I got a few surprised looks when I walked in, wearing a clean button-down, sunglasses, and the kind of confidence I'd never brought to family events before. Melissa approached first. She looked nervous. "Spencer, you actually came." I handed her the envelope. "What's this?" "Closure." She blinked. "What does that mean?" "You'll figure it out." Jason saw me next. His smile faded when I handed him his envelope. "You're doing this now?" "Yes," I said. "Now." Finally, I found Dad. He was sitting in the shade, drink in hand, talking to a neighbor. When he saw me, his eyes narrowed. "Thought you'd finally grown a spine," he said, chuckling. "Guess I was wrong." I handed him the envelope. He didn't take it at first. I set it on the table in front of him. "You're not owed my silence," I said. "Not anymore." Then I turned and walked away. I didn't stay for the rest. I didn't need to because the trap was already set. I knew they'd read those packets, knew they'd be furious, knew they'd want to paint me as ungrateful, vindictive, disrespectful. But I also knew something else. They had nothing left to hold over me. And when people finally see who you are without your money, your compliance, or your silence, that's when the real masks fall. And I was ready. The fallout didn't happen in an explosion. It happened in whispers, quiet phone calls, side-eye glances, half-hearted explanations at Sunday barbecues where people pretended everything was fine while holding manila envelopes they weren't supposed to talk about. And that's what made it so satisfying. Because it wasn't loud. It was embarrassing. And the kind of embarrassment my father hated more than anything was the one he couldn't control. See, the beauty of truth is that it doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs to be seen. And the moment I put it in writing, gave it shape, gave it receipts, it stopped being my burden and became theirs. By the end of the party, everyone had read what was in those envelopes. And no one saw them the same way again. It started with Melissa. Apparently, she spent the entire next week texting my cousin Leah, trying to contextualize the documents, spinning them into this convoluted story about temporary support and miscommunication. But Leah wasn't buying it. None of them were, because I'd backed every claim with cold, hard numbers. 6 years of payment logs, mortgage slips, utility bills, even screenshots of transfer confirmations. Jason didn't say much publicly, but I knew through the grapevine that he was furious. Not at me, but at my father. Why? Because it was his idea to go into my old files and attempt that bank withdrawal. That's what really buried them. My envelope hadn't just contained financial records. It included a redacted copy of the fraud alert notice. Dates, times, IP address, all pointing back to their home. Jason had 2 kids, a mortgage of his own, and a career he couldn't afford to tank. Suddenly, he realized that whatever game Dad thought he was playing, he didn't want to be part of it anymore. The tension split their golden sibling alliance in half. Melissa didn't fare much better. The silent relatives, the ones who usually stayed neutral, stopped backing her up. At birthdays and holidays, people pulled me aside, asked how I was doing, told me they always wondered how things really worked behind the scenes. They started skipping her invites. A couple of them stopped by my place for coffee. One even asked me to help their son get into coding. But the real fallout landed squarely on my father. The man who never apologized, never admitted fault, never once said, "Thank you," even after I paid 6 years of his bills. At first, he tried to ignore it, told people it was fabricated, that I'd made the numbers up, that I was being vindictive. But you can only spin so much when the truth is in print. And when people stopped calling, stopped visiting, stopped nodding along to his tired jokes, it hit him. Not all at once, but slowly, like a roof starting to leak. I didn't hear from him for 2 months. Then one afternoon I got a letter. Not from my mom. From him. "Spencer, you think you're so smart, so above it all. You embarrassed me. You disrespected your own family. You think money makes you better than us. You're not better. You're just bitter. I don't want anything from you. Don't come back. Don't bother writing. Dad." No apology. No acknowledgement of what he did. Just wounded pride wearing a mask of anger. But I read between the lines. That wasn't the voice of a man in control. That was a man scrambling to save face after the curtain fell. So I didn't write back. I didn't need to. Mom wrote again a few weeks later. A real letter this time. Honest. Sad. She apologized for staying silent. Said she didn't know about the bank stunt until after it happened. She begged me to forgive her, to remember who she used to be. She told me she was thinking of leaving him, that the house had become too heavy to live in. That letter shook me because I still loved her, even after everything. And I believed her because her guilt came from a real place. But I also knew it wasn't my job to save her. Not anymore. So I wrote back carefully, "Mom, I love you. I always will. But I can't carry this family anymore. I've built something for myself, something healthy, something mine. And I'm not going back to the version of me that made it okay for others to treat me like I didn't matter. If you decide to leave, I'll be here. Not with money, not with rescue, but with support. The emotional kind. The kind I always wanted from you. But I can't come back to that house. Not ever again. She didn't respond right away, but that's okay. I said what I needed to say. The final blow came a few weeks later on a Sunday afternoon. I was at the park with Milo in his little cat backpack. Don't judge. He loves it. When Leah called. Hey, she said, trying to sound casual. You're not going to believe this. What? Your parents sold the house. I stopped walking. What? Yep. Listed it last week. Underpriced it, too. Probably just wanted it gone fast. I didn't say anything for a second. And guess where your dad is staying now? Where? Jason's basement. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Not out of cruelty, but out of the absurdity. The man who spent his life looking down on me, mocking my independence, sneering at my loner lifestyle, was now living in his son's basement because the people he thought he could leech off forever finally walked away. Leah chuckled, too. Melissa won't take him. Said she's too busy. Your mom moved into an apartment across town. Smaller but nice. Looks like she might actually be happy. I let the moment sink in. Then I sat on a bench, unzipped Milo's backpack, and let him hop out onto my lap. There it was. Not some big cinematic ending. No courtroom scene, no tearful confessions. Just quiet consequences. Real ones. I'd stopped being the family's emotional punching bag. I told the truth. I'd walked away, and now they were sitting in the mess they'd made while I finally had a life that felt like mine. I didn't need revenge in the traditional sense. No flames, no screaming, no grand finale. I just needed one thing, freedom. And I got it. He'll cave, my father said. He was wrong. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My name is Ken. I'm 27. And I used to think that family support was something you earned by achieving something meaningful. I thought that if I worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, and made them proud enough, they'd show up. Not for every little thing, but for the big moments, the milestones. Like graduating from a top law school after clawing my way through years of night shifts, student loans, and a social life that practically evaporated. Turns out I was wrong. Let me back up. I come from what people might call a close-knit family. At least, that's the image my mom likes to project on Facebook. Group photos, matching outfits on holidays, big captions about family above all. But behind the curtain, it's more like a hierarchy. My cousin Trish is the golden child. She became a nurse, married her high school sweetheart, and gave my grandparents their first great-grandchild. My sister Eliza is the beauty pageant runner-up turned influencer in training. And me? Well, I was the bookworm, the one always too busy, too tired, too serious. Still, when I got my acceptance into Columbia's law program, they were all smiles and praise. My mom cried. My uncle said I was finally doing something respectable, and my grandpa even joked about me becoming the next Obama. That moment felt like a turning point, like I'd finally earned a seat at the family table. 3 years later, I passed the bar, wrapped up my last finals, and secured a position at a reputable firm in D.C. I decided to mark the occasion with a small graduation dinner. Not a full party, just a meaningful celebration with the people I thought mattered most. I planned everything myself. I reserved a private dining room at this rooftop Italian place with a view of the Hudson. I called ahead to make sure they had gluten-free options for my mom and vegan dishes for my sister. I paid for round-trip flights for everyone, booked their hotel rooms, and even included rideshare credits in a little group email I sent out. The guest list was just family, immediate family, plus my Uncle Brent and Aunt Janice, who'd always said they couldn't wait to see me graduate. My professors were throwing a departmental reception the following weekend, but this dinner was the one I cared about. I even picked a table where the sun would set right around dessert. The day before the dinner, I got a text from Eliza. Hey, don't hate me, but we're thinking of skipping the dinner. Trish just found this insane deal on an Airbnb in Montauk. It's like one of those luxury ones with a private beach and a fire pit and everything. I stared at the message for a full minute, assuming it had to be a joke. Then came the rest. My mom chiming in with, "You'll have other ceremonies, honey. We figured this was more of a formality anyway. The real celebration is your future." And then Uncle Brent, the cherry on top. "Don't be so dramatic, Callan. It's just a degree. Go have a drink with your classmates and let it go." I didn't reply. I just sat there, phone in hand, reservation confirmation open in another tab, and something in me, something I hadn't felt in years, just shifted. A kind of still, hollow anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The quiet kind that settles in your bones. That night, I looked at the group photo I'd printed and framed for each of them. It was from my first Christmas break during law school. I was bleary-eyed and sleep-deprived, but smiling like a kid who finally made it to the grown-up table. I'd even booked a photographer to capture the dinner and had little handwritten notes folded under everyone's name cards thanking them for their support. What a joke. So I made a few calls. First, to the airline. I booked through a group travel concierge to simplify everything. Canceling the return tickets was easy. I didn't even need to explain. I just clicked the modify button and chose cancel segment. No refunds, of course. Non-refundable. Shame. Then I gathered all the graduation gifts. I'd carefully wrapped custom fountain pens for the uncles, a monogrammed clutch for Eliza, and gourmet gift boxes for the grandparents, and I took them straight to the university office. My professors had been more like family than my actual relatives these past few years. I wrote out a simple message. Thank you for believing in me when others didn't. The dinner still happened. I'd already paid for it, and the venue was non-refundable, but the guest list changed. I invited 3 of my professors, 2 classmates who didn't have local family, and a couple of international students who weren't flying home until the end of the month. We laughed, we clinked glasses, and we shared stories. I gave a small toast, nothing dramatic, just a thank you to those who show up, even when it's not convenient. One of the servers offered to take a photo of us by the railing at sunset. I posted it in the family group chat. No caption, no snark, just the image. Me in my cap and gown, arm around my professor, glass raised, city skyline glowing behind us, smiling like I'd never even heard of Montauk. Took less than 10 minutes. My sister was the first to call. She sounded out of breath. Callan, what did you do? Mom's losing it. Like really losing it. She thought you'd understand. We just wanted one last break before everything changes. She said, you canceled the tickets? They're freaking stranded. I leaned back in my chair, watching the last of the sunlight disappear behind the buildings. Eliza, I said, you made a choice. So did I. She started sputtering something about how it wasn't that serious, how they just didn't think I'd take it so personally, and that they didn't expect me to be so cold. I didn't respond. I just ended the call and turned off my phone. The messages came in waves after that. Missed calls from my mom. Long texts from Uncle Brent about how family doesn't keep score, and how I was being cruel and vindictive. I didn't reply to any of them. The only message I saved was from my Aunt Janice. Callan, I'm so sorry. We should have been there. I should have been there. I haven't decided if I'll reply to her yet. Because the thing is, they're right about one thing. I will have other ceremonies. I'll win cases. I'll move up. I'll build a life that has nothing to do with who shows up for the photos. But this dinner, that moment, it only happens once, and they chose to be somewhere else. And I chose not to forget that. The fallout didn't hit all at once. It dripped in slow and steady like water from a cracked ceiling. The morning after the dinner, I turned my phone back on, 32 texts, 9 missed calls, for voicemails. It was like waking up to a mess you didn't make, but were expected to clean up. The first voicemail was from my mom. Her voice was strained, tight with forced calm. Callan, sweetheart, we need to talk. I think there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought, well, you've always been so independent. You didn't even ask if we were free that weekend. It came on fast. Call me, please. Right? A misunderstanding. Like she hadn't RSVP'd to the dinner herself 3 weeks ago with a smiley face emoji and a can't wait to celebrate message. The second voicemail was from Uncle Brent, and it was less polished. All right, listen. You made your point. You're mad. Fine. But stranding your own family? Really? You think that makes you better than us? We were going to surprise you with something big. Now you've thrown it all away. Just pick up your damn phone. I didn't. Not that day. Not the next either. Instead, I walked the city with no destination. There's something about New York that makes you feel anonymous in the best way. I wandered through Central Park, ducked into bookstores, got a hot dog from a street cart, and ate it on a bench overlooking the reservoir. I kept playing their words in my head. You'll have other ceremonies. It's just a degree. Don't be so dramatic. But it wasn't just the graduation. It was every missed birthday when they forgot to call. Every group vacation I wasn't invited to because I was probably too busy. Every time my accomplishments were treated like trivia. This dinner was the first time I had asked for something, just once, and they chose a beach over me. By the third day, the messages took a different tone. Aunt Janice texted a photo of the family sitting at the train station with luggage, looking tired and miserable. We're finally heading back. I hope you'll talk to us when we get home. My sister Eliza followed it up with, Mom cried all night. She's not eating. Just talk to her. Please. The guilt trip was familiar. Classic playbook. Make me feel responsible for their feelings. Ignore what they did. Then act wounded when I don't fold. But then something changed. That Friday, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a voice I hadn't heard in years said, Is this Ken Rossner? I blinked. Yes. This is Dr. Greer. I taught your undergrad ethics seminar at Georgetown. You reached out about an internship recommendation back in 2019. I straightened up immediately, trying to place the memory. She continued, I ran into one of your professors from Columbia at a conference this week. He said you gave him a beautiful thank you gift after your graduation dinner. He spoke very highly of you, said you've become quite the standout. I just wanted to say that was a good choice, prioritizing people who support you. Not everyone has that clarity at your age. We spoke for 10 minutes. After we hung up, I sat quietly in my apartment, staring out the window. I could still hear Eliza's voice from the voicemail. Just talk to her, please. I thought about all the dinners I'd skipped, all the calls I used to send straight to voicemail. Not out of malice, but exhaustion. And yet, the one time I really chose myself, they crumbled. That weekend, I finally agreed to meet them. Not all of them, just my mom and Eliza. We picked a coffee shop halfway between my place and their hotel. It was raining, drizzle at first, then heavier, as if the city itself didn't want to make this easy. When I walked in, my mom looked smaller than I remembered. Hair pulled back in a tight bun. Lips pursed like she'd been holding back tears since Wednesday. Eliza looked annoyed, like she wanted to be anywhere else. I sat. No hugs. My mom went first. I know we messed up, she said, voice cracking. I genuinely thought you wouldn't mind. You always seemed so strong, so distant, like you didn't need us there. I didn't need you there, I said evenly. I wanted you there. There's a difference. She winced like the word stung. We didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. Silence. Eliza finally spoke. Are you really going to keep punishing us? You canceled the flights, Ken. We were stranded. That was petty. I turned to her. Petty is booking a beach house after RSVPing to my dinner. Petty is laughing when Uncle Brent said it was just a degree. Petty is pretending that my life only matters when it's convenient for the rest of you. My mom whispered, I didn't laugh. You didn't defend me either. More silence. Outside, the rain blurred the view of traffic like someone had smeared their fingers down a wet canvas. I thought about ending the conversation there. Standing, walking out, letting the silence speak for me. But then my mom did something that caught me off guard. She reached into her purse and slid an envelope across the table. Your grandmother wrote you a letter. She's been sick. She didn't come because she thought she wouldn't make the travel, but she asked me to give you this. I didn't take the envelope. Not yet. I stared at it, my heart thudding louder than I wanted to admit. My mom continued, voice barely audible. She said you were the only one who never asked her for anything, and that made you the easiest to forget. She said that wasn't fair. That hit harder than I expected. I finally took the envelope, slid it into my coat pocket, and stood. I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I just finally realized I don't have to carry the disappointment anymore. It's not mine to hold. Eliza rolled her eyes. So what? You're done with the family. I looked at her for a long time. Then I smiled, calm, small, quiet. "No," I said. "I'm just done pretending I'm lucky to be part of it." And with that, I walked out. I didn't open the letter that night. I thought I would. I even laid it out on the kitchen counter next to a mug of peppermint tea, the rain still tapping gently on the window behind me like some dramatic soundtrack to a life-altering epiphany. But the envelope just sat there, cream-colored, heavy, my name in shaky cursive across the front. My grandmother's handwriting, a style that always looked like it belonged on wedding invitations or old love letters. It was too delicate, too real. I wasn't ready. Instead, I cleaned the apartment methodically, compulsively, like if I just organized my space enough, my thoughts would fall in line behind it. I vacuumed twice, rearranged the bookshelves, alphabetized my spice rack. Anything but read that letter. The next morning, the ripple effects really started. My cousin Trish texted first. "Heard you made everyone cry. Was it worth it? You've always been dramatic, but this is a new level." I stared at it for a while before archiving it without reply. Then came a message from Uncle Brent. He'd apparently roped my dad into a furious group chat titled, "Family First." It was 2 paragraphs of finger-pointing. According to them, I'd humiliated the family, weaponized money, and burned bridges that can't be rebuilt. My dad, who hadn't said a word to me in months, suddenly piped up in the thread with, "We raised you better than this. You don't just abandon blood over hurt feelings." I left the thread without a word. No drama, no send-off message, just gone. But things didn't stop there. On Monday, I got a call from my grandfather. Now, my grandfather doesn't call. He prefers his old recliner, the sports channel, and mumbling from behind a newspaper like he's been doing since the Kennedy administration. But that morning, my phone buzzed and there he was, Papa Mobile. I almost didn't pick up, but I did. "Callan," he said, voice rough like gravel. "Heard there was trouble." "That's one word for it," I said. He grunted the way old men do when they're either annoyed or trying not to say the wrong thing. "Your mom's been in a state. Your uncle's yelling. Your grandmother hasn't spoken since she gave her letter to Janice." "I haven't read it," I admitted. Another grunt. Should silence stretched out long and uncomfortable. Then he said, "You know your uncle always had his head up his own rear. That's not news. Your mom, she's not good at showing up for people who don't scream the loudest. Doesn't mean she don't care. Just means she ain't built for quiet disappointments." That stung because he wasn't wrong. I'd always been the quiet one. The one who didn't raise my voice or throw fits or demand attention. The dependable one. And maybe that made it easier for them to forget me. "She said you embarrassed her," he continued. "She embarrassed me?" I said, a bit sharper than I intended. "All of them did." More silence. "Then maybe it's time someone in this family got embarrassed." And that was it. He hung up. It was the closest thing to support I'd gotten from him in years, and it landed like a small spark in a pitch-black room. That night, I finally opened the letter. The handwriting was shakier than I remembered, slanted hard to the right like she'd been gripping the pen too tight. "Callan, I don't know if this will reach you before you make up your mind about us, but I wanted to try. I've watched you grow into the kind of man I wish I'd known when I was your age. You work hard. You carry the weight no one sees. And I think we all forgot that even the strongest backs can break. I didn't come to your dinner because I was afraid I wouldn't make it through the flight. But that wasn't fair to you. I should have told you. I should have asked you to come visit me instead. I let pride get in the way. And I think that's something a lot of us have passed down without realizing it. You're not dramatic. You're just finally speaking a language we don't like hearing, one where your pain has a place at the table. I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry. Love, Grammy." I sat with that for a long time. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it back up, placed it in a hardcover journal, and slid it onto the top shelf of my bookcase. Somewhere I could find it again when I needed to remind myself that not every apology comes too late. But the letter didn't undo everything. It didn't change the fact that my uncle had now apparently spread his version of the story to half the extended family. I started getting passive-aggressive comments under old Facebook photos. A cousin posted a cryptic meme about people who think money equals character. Another aunt commented, "It's sad when someone thinks a dinner is worth more than decades of love." I hadn't spoken to that aunt in 2 years. I was still debating whether to reply to Grammy when a package showed up at my door 3 days later. No return address. Inside was a framed photo, an old one from when I was 13. A Thanksgiving dinner. Me and my sister elbowing each other in front of a pie. My mom blurry in the background. Everyone was laughing. Taped to the frame was a sticky note in red pen. "Remember this, Callan? Before things broke. Before we all forgot how to sit still long enough to say thank you." I sat on the floor for an hour just holding it. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. "Callan?" The voice asked, small and hoarse. "It's Mom. Please don't hang up." She sounded different. Worn down. Not theatrical like before. Not scolding. Just tired. And something about that scared me more than any yelling ever could. "I know you're angry," she said. Words rushing like if she didn't say it fast enough, I'd disappear. "I know we hurt you. I know we didn't show up. I don't know how to fix it. But I want to. Please, let's just talk." I didn't say anything because I knew what she really wanted. She didn't want to fix what happened. She wanted to fix how it looked. And just as I was about to respond, my doorbell rang. And that's when I realized this wasn't over. They weren't done. When the doorbell rang, my first instinct was to ignore it. New York is full of surprise visitors, most of them unwelcome. Flyers for luxury dry cleaning, politicians begging for signatures, or the occasional neighbor who swore they heard a package get stolen. But something in my gut told me to open it. Standing in the hallway, holding a semi-crushed bouquet of sunflowers and looking like she hadn't slept in days, was my mother. "Callan," she said softly. Behind her stood Eliza, arms crossed and sunglasses pushed up onto her head, like she wanted to be anywhere else. She didn't meet my eyes. "I didn't say you could come here," I replied flatly. "I know," Mom whispered, voice cracking. I needed you to see me. Not through texts, not over the phone. Me." I opened the door wider, but only to step outside and shut it behind me. I wasn't letting them into my space. Not after everything. "You flew all the way to New York?" I asked. "After everything I made crystal clear?" She nodded. "I booked the flights myself. I didn't tell anyone but your sister. I couldn't stop thinking about what you said." I looked her in the eyes. The woman who once scoffed at me for choosing a boring bookish life instead of doing something flashy like real estate or Instagram consulting, as she liked to call it. The woman who'd always had room on her schedule for Trisha's pageants or Eliza's TikTok shoots, but never for one of my debates or class presentations. The same woman who ditched my graduation dinner because Trish found a beach house with a fire pit. "Why are you really here?" I asked. She stepped forward. "Because I lost sight of what mattered, and I thought if I could just stand here and say it, maybe you'd believe me." I shook my head. "No, you're here because Grammy wrote that letter and you're terrified that she saw the truth before you did. That she said what you couldn't." Eliza finally spoke. "Okay, this is ridiculous. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It was a dinner, Ken. One dinner. You've been acting like we abandoned you in a war zone." I turned to her slowly, eyes locked on hers. "You've posted more Instagram stories from that beach house than you've said words to me in the past 3 years. Eliza rolled her eyes. "So, this is about attention." "No," I said. "This is about respect." My mom sighed, clearly rattled. "Callan, she's not good at apologies. But I am. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't come. I'm sorry we made you feel like you didn't matter. That's never what we intended." "That's the thing, Mom," I said. "Intent doesn't undo impact. You meant to support me. You meant to be proud. But when the moment came, you chose a beach." She looked down at the flowers, then offered them toward me. I didn't take them. "I appreciate the gesture," I said. "But this isn't going to be fixed with sunflowers and surprise visits. I spent 3 years becoming someone I could be proud of. I asked for one night. Not money, not help, not praise, just presence. And you didn't even text until I sent the photo. My voice was steady now, firm. This isn't about punishment. This is about boundaries. And this, I gestured between us, is one of them. I'll do better, she said quickly. I swear I'll show up. Your bar swearing in, your job celebration, I cut her off. You don't get to skip the foundation and jump to the milestones. You want to be in my life? You start from the beginning, not the photos. Eliza scoffed. Oh my God. You sound like a Lifetime movie. I turned to her, deadpan. And you sound like someone who can't stand not being the center of attention. She blinked, mouth opening slightly, like she'd never heard me speak to her like that before. Then I turned back to my mother. You can come into my life when you learn to respect it. Not before, not on your timeline, and certainly not when it suits your guilt. I don't know what that looks like, she said quietly. Then it's time you learn, I replied. With that, I stepped back and opened the door. Not for them, but for me. I paused only to add one final note. You can both fly home tonight or stay in the city. That part's up to you. But you're not coming inside. My mother's lip quivered, but she nodded slowly, carefully. As if a single wrong move would shatter the glass she was finally realizing she'd been walking on for years. She turned to Eliza and murmured something, but I didn't stick around to hear it. I shut the door behind me, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the outsider in my own story. A week later, I mailed Grammy a letter. Not an email, not a text. A real letter. Ink on paper, folded into an envelope with my firm's letterhead. I thanked her for what she wrote. Told her I read it 3 times. Told her it meant more to me than she could know. I didn't mention the confrontation with the rest of the family. I didn't need to. She would know. She always knew. 3 days after that, I got a small box in the mail. Inside was a photograph of me as a toddler, sitting on Grammy's lap with my fingers in her curls and a book in my hand. Tucked behind it was a note in the same shaky handwriting. Keep building your life the way you built your dinner. Full of good people, good stories, and no room for anyone who doesn't show up when it matters. That photo sits on my desk now in a sleek black frame. I don't hear much from Eliza anymore. She posted a dramatic caption on Instagram a few days after our conversation. Some people love holding grudges more than they love healing. Let them go. The comments were full of fire emojis and yes queen gifs. She never tagged me. As for my mom, she sends short messages every now and then. Not essays, not apologies, just little things. Thinking of you. Hope the case is going well. Saw a book I thought you'd like. Let me know if you want it. I haven't responded yet, but I haven't blocked her either. That's the boundary. I don't need a perfect family. I just need an honest one. And now I know the difference. So when my firm held its welcome banquet, my first official event as a full associate, I reserved 2 extra seats. One for a friend I met at the dinner, and one for Grammy, who couldn't make it but sent me her favorite brooch to wear on my lapel. The seats stayed full all night, and not a single one was empty. Now on to the next story. Story 6. When my house caught fire, I texted, "We're alive. We have nothing left." Silence. 2 hours later, my father posted vacation photos. Can't beat family time. Nobody showed. Weeks later, still in a shelter with the kids, my phone lit up. 94 missed calls and a text from Dad. Send $6,000 or we're finished. Without thinking, it started with the smell of something bitter and wrong around 3:40 in the morning. I was half awake already because Ava, our youngest, had a fever and my wife, Taylor, had been up with her all night. I remember Taylor shouting my name once. Just once. Then the crackling sound filled the hallway like something alive. The fire spread fast. Too fast. One moment I was grabbing my phone. The next I was stumbling barefoot into the street, holding Ava wrapped in a wet towel while Taylor ran out with Mason, our 6-year-old, clinging to her neck. I watched the roof collapse like cardboard under flame. And that's when I sent the text. "We're alive. We have nothing left." I sent it to the family group chat. My dad, my mom, Taylor's parents, my 3 cousins, her sister, everyone. Then I waited for a ping. Nothing. We stood outside while the neighbors gave us blankets and socks and somebody's kids' shoes. Fire trucks howled and hissed behind us. I looked again. No reply. 47 minutes later, I wrote another one. House gone. Staying in emergency shelter. Kids safe. Call me. Still nothing. I stared at the screen until my battery hit red. Taylor asked if anyone replied, and I shook my head. Her face crumpled a little, but she didn't say anything. She didn't have to. 2 hours later, just after sunrise, my dad posted a photo on Facebook. Him, my mom, and my 2 cousins' family, smiling with sun hats and matching shirts. The caption said, "Can't beat family time. #blessed #Oceanview Resort." No one called, no one texted, no one even liked my post about the fire, and it wasn't like they didn't see it. I watched 3 of them go online within an hour. Read receipts don't lie. That night, Taylor and I sat on 2 narrow cots in the shelter, the kids sleeping between us. We shared a plastic container of soup and I stared at the ceiling, feeling like I'd walked off the edge of something real and was now just floating in disbelief. Then 3 days later, my mom finally sent a text. "Glad you're all okay. Sorry we were busy. Hope insurance covers it all. Things happen for a reason." Taylor read it over my shoulder and walked away. She didn't say a word for the rest of the night. I didn't blame her. I was too stunned to feel angry yet. That would come later. A week passed. We applied for emergency housing. The kids missed school. Taylor missed work. I missed caring about anything. The Red Cross gave us some essentials. Still, not a word from anyone else in the family. Not even Taylor's sister. Then my phone buzzed like a seizure in my pocket. 94 missed calls. All from my dad. The last text just said, "Send $6,000 or we're finished." No explanation, no greeting, just that. And I didn't even think before I replied. My thumbs moved like they already knew what I needed to say. But not because I was afraid of being downed. No, it was because something cracked open in me then, and I decided I would burn everything they loved down to the ground, too. I didn't even ask what he needed the money for. I didn't care. He'd already told me everything I needed to know. Not with words, but with silence. A week earlier, we'd lost everything. And now he needed a loan. I didn't reply right away. I waited 2 hours. I knew he was watching his phone like a vulture. Then I sent, "We're still in a shelter. You ignored us. You'll get nothing." He replied 5 minutes later. "I told you years ago you were on your own. This is your last chance, Mike. Don't push it." Taylor sat next to me, brushing knots out of Mason's hair with her fingers. I showed her the message. She didn't flinch. She just said, "Good. Let him rot." We spent the next 2 weeks bouncing between hotel vouchers and community programs. Taylor picked up shifts at a diner. I did some remote IT gigs on borrowed Wi-Fi. The kids were quiet all the time. Too quiet. Ava asked once when we were going back home. I said soon. She nodded, even though we both knew I was lying. Then came the kicker. My cousin Bethany had the nerve to DM Taylor on Instagram. Not to check on us, not to ask if we needed help. She sent a photo of her new kitchen renovation. Caption: "Finally got the backsplash I wanted. White marble all the way to hearts." Taylor stared at her screen like it had just coughed blood. She showed me. I didn't even get angry. I just laughed. Something inside me had already gone numb. Bethany knew. They all knew. And they didn't care. They probably talked about us at that beach resort like we were some sad statistic they'd once known. Then the GoFundMe happened. My old college roommate started it without asking. Said he felt awful when he saw the news. It hit 22 grand in 4 days. And that's when the family suddenly remembered we existed. First, it was my Aunt Debbie, who hadn't texted in 6 years. She sent a long paragraph about remembering how close we used to be and how sometimes people drift apart but love is always there. Then my dad called. I let it ring. Next day he texted, "I hear you got a big donation. Grandma's not doing well. We might all need to chip in for medical stuff. Be a man. Step up." I don't know why that set me off. Maybe it was the "be a man" line. Maybe it was picturing my grandma sick and realizing the only people who might care were the ones they ignored. Taylor said, "They only remember us when there's money involved." She was right. We found a cheap studio and moved in. One room, mattresses on the floor, a hot plate. The kids shared a plastic dresser, but it was ours. Then 2 months later, my grandmother died. She passed peacefully in her sleep, and the funeral was invite only. We weren't invited. My mom texted the next day. Thought it'd be too hard for you all to come. She left a little something for everyone. You're in the will. Call your father. We never got to say goodbye. Mason cried when he found out. He loved her. She used to sneak him gumdrops behind my dad's back. I called the lawyer instead. Grandma had left behind $300,000 divided into 4 parts. My dad, my Aunt Debbie, my Uncle Greg, and me. We were each supposed to get $75,000. The lawyer sounded awkward when he said it, like he knew what was coming. My dad had already contacted him, trying to convince him I'd waived my rights. He tried to steal my part. The lawyer didn't fall for it. He said the money would be released in a few weeks, and that I should keep my distance from my father. Taylor just nodded when I told her. She said, "They're going to come crawling. Watch." She wasn't wrong. 3 days after the lawyer confirmed the inheritance, my dad showed up outside our building. He'd never been to this place before. Probably didn't even know the street existed until he plugged it into his GPS. He didn't text, didn't call, just stood by the entrance with that smug, stiff posture he always used when he thought he had leverage. I didn't let him in. I stood at the window and watched him buzz 5 times. Then my phone lit up. "I'm outside. Let's talk like men. It's your duty to the family." I turned it off and walked back to the kids, who were playing with a second-hand puzzle Taylor found at a garage sale. She asked if it was him. I said, "Yeah." She didn't even look up. Just said, "Don't open the door." He left after 20 minutes. Aunt Debbie was next. She emailed me a list of outstanding family expenses that she claimed Grandma would have wanted me to help with. Included were things like her son's student loans, Bethany's therapy bills, and, I swear to God, a reimbursement for a Christmas trip they took to Aspen in 2021 because it was meant to include everyone. The subject line was, "Let's heal together, Redheart." Taylor and I read it out loud twice. Then we deleted it. The money came in a week later. $75,000 wired to my account. I didn't tell the kids. We kept it quiet. Used some to put a deposit on a 2-bedroom rental in a better part of town. I got Mason a Real bed. Taylor started smiling again. Ava slept through the night for the first time in months. Then came the next storm. My cousin Jacob, the one who once told me I should have just toughed it out, when the house burned down, emailed me his bank info with a single line. "Anything helps. Grandma would have wanted us to support each other." That same day, Taylor's sister Melissa called crying. I hadn't heard from her since the fire. Not once. Now she was in tears about a bad investment her boyfriend made. Something with crypto. Said she was going to lose her apartment. She said, "Just a few grand, Mike, please. I'm family." That was when Taylor took the phone from my hand and hung up without a word. We started getting letters, not legal ones, just handwritten notes from my mom, my aunt, and even Bethany. They played every angle. Guilt, family, faith. Grandma's spirit would be ashamed. Be the bigger person. Money changes people. Don't let it change you. It was almost impressive how fast they turned from ignoring us during a crisis to demanding we save them from their bad decisions. But it wasn't just the begging. It was the spite that came next. Bethany posted on Facebook about people who win the grief lottery and forget their roots. My dad told mutual friends I was keeping blood money. Jacob called me a coward with a wallet. Taylor said they never cared about us. They just cared about control. Still, part of me wondered, should I have done something, given a little smooth things over? That thought died the moment my dad tried to call Mason directly. Somehow he got his tablet number and sent him a video message. I watched it with him. It started with, "Hey buddy, it's Grandpa. I know your dad's confused right now, but maybe you can talk to him for us." Mason didn't even finish watching. He turned to me and said, "Can we block him?" So we did. That night, Taylor looked me in the eye and said, "Don't give them a cent." I said, "I won't." But I didn't know yet how far they'd go to try to break that promise. 3 weeks passed. Things felt almost normal again. The new apartment was small but clean. The kids were enrolled in school. Taylor was baking again. Nothing fancy, but the smell of cinnamon rolls in a real kitchen after 6 months of canned soup felt like a second chance. Then the envelope came. No return address, just my name in thick black marker. It wasn't mailed. Someone had dropped it at our door. Inside was a single photograph. It was a picture of my grandmother in her hospital bed. Eyes closed, breathing tube, frail, but not gone yet. The back had one sentence, "You should have been there." Taylor found it first. She didn't say anything. She just put it in my hands and stared at me. I didn't know what to say. I'd grieved my grandmother the moment I heard she died. Now they were trying to weaponize her memory. Later that day, Taylor's phone buzzed. She froze. Then she handed it to me. It was a video sent from a random number. The video started shaky, like it was shot secretly. In it, you could see the front of our apartment building. The camera slowly zoomed in toward our window. Then a male voice, I couldn't place it, whispered, "Enjoy it while it lasts." That's when I knew this wasn't about money anymore. This was about punishment. They didn't just want a cut of the inheritance. They wanted me ashamed, crawling, broken. But they didn't know what I'd already lost. The next morning, Taylor drove Mason to school while I stayed back with Ava, who'd caught a cold. Around 9 a.m., someone knocked. I looked through the peephole. It was Bethany holding a stroller and a suitcase. I didn't open the door. She said through the door, "My fiancé kicked me out. I have nowhere else to go." I asked, "Why here?" She said, "Because you owe me. We're family." I told her she had 30 seconds to walk away or I was calling the cops. She didn't budge. Instead, she sat down on the floor in front of our door and started crying. Loud, performative, almost theatrical. Neighbors opened their doors. One guy started filming. I told her again to leave. She shouted, "This is what Grandma died for? You turning your back on blood." I didn't call the cops. Taylor did. By the time they escorted her out, she was screaming. Not just at us, but at the officers, at the neighbors, at the sky. It was the first time Ava ever saw a family member in handcuffs. That night, Taylor sat beside me on the couch and said, "They're not done." I nodded. She added, "So we have to be." So we changed our numbers, locked everything down, told the school not to release the kids to anyone but us, got security cameras, and even started using aliases on social media. But even then, they found ways. 2 weeks later, Mason got sick. Hospital visit. Nothing major. Flu, they said. But while checking in, the nurse paused and said, "Oh, your insurance is showing a duplicate profile under the same name recently added. Parent, Gregory Lawson." That was my uncle's name. They were trying to access my kids' medical records. Taylor stood up and said, "We're done running." She wasn't talking about lawyers. She meant something else. And the next day she started writing emails, long, detailed emails to every person in the extended family's lives. Employers, churches, book clubs, Facebook groups. She didn't lie. She just told the full truth about the fire, the silence, the begging, the threats, the photo, the video, and Bethany showing up with a stroller she didn't even own. Taylor ended every email the same way. "This is who they are and this is what they did." By the end of the week, 3 cousins lost their jobs. My dad was removed from a church committee. My Aunt Debbie's yoga studio dropped 5 regulars. One of them wrote Taylor a thank you note. I didn't feel better, but I felt even until the letter from the lawyer arrived. They were contesting the will. The letter was formal, cold, and blunt. A petition has been filed to dispute the division of assets within the estate of M. Lawson, deceased. Filed by Gregory Lawson, Deborah Reeves, and Thomas Lawson, Sr. That was my uncle, my aunt, and my father. The 3 of them wanted my share, all of it, claiming emotional instability, estrangement, and undue influence. It was laughable but not funny. Taylor read the letter twice, then folded it, pressed it flat against the table and said, "Let them try. We hired a lawyer with part of the inheritance." She was tough, a former probate shark who specialized in greedy families. She took one look at the paperwork and said, "They're bluffing, but they'll drag this out if they think you'll cave." And they did. Emails, filings, calls, every day something new. They wanted to bleed us dry with paperwork and pressure. Like they thought if they just buried us under enough legal nonsense, we'd beg them to settle. But they underestimated two things. We'd already lived through worse, and Taylor was done being polite. She documented everything. Every call, every message, every social post they tried to delete. We even caught my cousin Jacob messaging one of Mason's teachers trying to express concern about our family drama. We reported it. Then came the mistake. Their mistake. During a court-required disclosure, the opposing side submitted an old group chat screenshot to prove I was alienated from the family. They accidentally left in a set of texts between my aunt and cousin talking about planting the photo of Grandma at our door. One line from Bethany read, "Let's spook them a little. He deserves it." That was it. Our lawyer's eyes lit up. She smiled. The first time I'd seen her smile, and said, "Game over." They folded the same week. No settlement. No apology. Just silence. But that's not where it ended. Not even close. 2 days after the case was dropped, my father showed up at my work. I was walking out to my car when I saw him leaning against it. He looked thinner, or maybe just smaller. I almost walked right past him. He said, "Your mother's sick." I didn't answer. He added, "We need help, and I know you have the money." I said, "You lost the right to ask for anything when you tried to erase me." He said, "I'm still your father." I said, "Not anymore," and I walked away. When I got in the car, I saw an envelope under my windshield. No name, no writing. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A bill, a printed invoice from 1998, my first semester of college, $6,042, paid by Thomas Lawson. Nothing else. Not a note, not a message, just the number. It was his final shot, like I owed him for existing. I showed it to Taylor. She took it, walked to the kitchen, and lit it on fire in the sink. "Now you're even," she said. I wanted to believe it was over. But then a week later, something happened we didn't expect. A second inheritance. My grandmother's sister, a woman none of us knew well, passed away quietly in Vermont. No kids, no spouse. She left behind a few antiques and a small fortune she never told anyone about. She left it all to her niece's grandson. Me. Another $225,000. And just like that, the storm we thought we'd survived came right back. Louder, meaner, and this time permanent. The second inheritance came with no ceremony. Just a call from a probate lawyer up in Montpelier. I thought it was a scam at first, but no. My great-aunt Eleanor, who I barely remembered meeting as a kid, had named me her sole beneficiary. No conditions, no restrictions, just a letter in her will that said, "To Michael Lawson, someone I believe won't waste it." The number was unreal. $225,000 wired directly. When I told Taylor, she didn't smile or cheer. She just sat down, hands in her lap, and whispered, "They're going to lose their minds." They did. My dad must have found out within 2 days. He called from a new number, one I hadn't blocked yet, and left a voicemail. "You're playing dangerous games, Mike. You think you're above us now." The next morning, Taylor's sister, Melissa, showed up outside the school. Not to see Taylor, but to wait for Mason. She told him, "Remind your mom that family shares." That was the end of our patience. We called the police. We sent cease and desist letters. We changed the locks again. And then Taylor made the call. She rented a small office, set up a foundation. Not a flashy one, just a quiet, private family trust for the kids, for their future, inaccessible to anyone else. Everything went into it. Every penny of both inheritances. It wasn't about hiding money. It was about sealing the door permanently. And then the final blow came, and I didn't even throw it. One of Taylor's old friends was a podcaster, small audience, local stories. She'd heard about what happened and asked if Taylor wanted to talk about it. Not with names, just the experience. Taylor said yes. The episode went viral. It wasn't about the fire. It was about abandonment, manipulation, and money. People related. People commented. And someone I'll never know who connected the dots. They posted screenshots, named names, dug up the GoFundMe, the probate filings, the online posts, even that dumb backsplash photo Bethany had bragged about. It all exploded. My family lost everything they were clinging to, their reputation. My dad was booted from the HOA and blacklisted from his retirement golf league. Debbie's yoga studio shut down after a review bomb. Jacob was fired again. Bethany was ghosted by her new fiancé, who apparently had no idea she'd faked being homeless for sympathy. And then came the group message. Not to me, to Taylor. From my mom. Congratulations. You win. You poisoned our family. Hope the money keeps you warm. Taylor showed it to me, then blocked the number. That was the last message we ever got. I wish I could say I felt triumphant or vindicated or proud. But I didn't. I just felt clean, like stepping out of smoke after months of choking on it. I took the kids camping a month later. Nothing fancy. A borrowed tent, a lake, marshmallows on sticks. Mason laughed so hard he fell in the water. Ava drew a picture of our new house with a tree and 4 windows. Taylor looked at me across the fire and said, "We did the right thing, right?" I said, "Yeah, because we didn't take revenge. We just stopped bleeding for people who never brought us bandages. And that finally was enough. It's been 10 months since everything ended, or what we thought was the end. No calls, no texts, not even a Christmas card. The silence became normal, peaceful even. We got into routines again. Taylor launched a small online business making custom signs. Mason joined a robotics club. Ava lost her first tooth and asked if the tooth fairy would pay extra since her old house burned down. We laughed. We moved on. We healed. Until last Thursday. I came home from work and found an envelope in the mailbox. No return address again. But this time the handwriting was familiar. Shaky but familiar. It was from Grandma, not the one who passed, the other one. My mom's mom. A woman I hadn't heard from in years. I didn't even know she was still alive. Inside was a single page, a note written in blue ink. They told me not to reach out, said you changed. But I'd been watching quietly. You did what I couldn't. You broke the cycle. I'm proud of you. There was no number, no address, just a postscript. P.S. There's something hidden in the attic of my old house. I don't trust them to find it. Taylor and I sat on the couch that night, staring at that letter like it might burst into flames. That house had been sold 2 years ago. My Aunt Debbie handled the sale. We thought it was long gone, but now we're not sure. We don't know what's in that attic or why it was hidden, but tomorrow we're driving out there. One last chapter, maybe. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My dad texted, "We've all agreed. Stay out of the family now." I replied, "Understood." Then I pulled my investment from the new office building project. 48 hours later, my mom was in tears. My brother was hiring lawyers, and the developer texted, "Your withdrawal just killed our funding." I smiled and wrote, I was standing in line at a coffee shop when the text came through, "We've all agreed. Stay out of the family now." Just like that. No punctuation at the end. Like it was too urgent or too casual to finish properly. It was from my dad. Same man I helped out of a $400,000 hole 3 years ago when one of his trusted partners ran off with the company's payroll. Same man who hugged me that day like I'd saved his life. Now, apparently, I was no longer family. I stared at the screen. A couple of people behind me in line were getting impatient, but I didn't move. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second, and then typed, "Understood." Then I put the phone away, ordered my coffee, and left without even waiting for it. Something in my gut shifted. Not like a punch, more like a switch being flipped. Quiet, clean, permanent. On the drive home, I didn't blast music. I just listened to the sound of my own breath. I ran the last few weeks over in my mind. Alyssa, my younger sister, had been whispering her way through the family business ever since she came back from San Diego last fall. Suddenly, she had ideas. Suddenly, she wanted a seat at the table, but she didn't want to earn it. She wanted to inherit it. And apparently, she had succeeded. What they didn't know was that I had anticipated something like this. I'd been watching her work the angles. She wasn't clever, just bold. reckless, bold. I saw the signs months ago when she started questioning my role in meetings, saying things like, "Why does Lucas always get final say?" And "We should modernize how we vote on decisions." It sounded democratic, fair, but it was a setup. They didn't know I still controlled the biggest private stake in the new office complex. Not just in capital, but in design. I had signed off on the core engineering plan. Without me, the permits were nothing but paper. So, I called my advisor, Mark, the second I pulled into my driveway. "Pull everything," I said. "All of it from the West Side development. Move it to the Midtown renovation project we discussed last week. Make it fast." Within hours, the wires were in motion. 2 days later, the building site stalled. Workers were sent home. The bank called off the loan. Permits expired. And just like that, the crown jewel of my father's so-called legacy hit a brick wall. My mom showed up at my condo that night. I didn't answer the door. I watched her on the security feed. She stood there for 10 minutes, then left. She texted me an hour later, "I don't know what you're doing, but you're hurting everyone." I didn't reply. The next morning, Andrew, my older brother, sent a series of texts that looked like a toddler had smashed a keyboard. Then finally one that said, "Alyssa showed us your message. We know what you were planning. You were going to cut us out once the building went up." That stopped me cold. I never sent a message like that. And that's when I knew. She faked it. Alyssa actually faked a screenshot. A conversation that never happened. She lied and they believed her. They didn't even ask me. They didn't even check. That afternoon, the lead developer, Dan Myers, a guy I'd vacationed with once, messaged me in a panic. "Your withdrawal just killed our funding. Without you, the anchor tenant is pulling out." I waited an hour before I wrote back. My father said I should stay out of the family, so I did. No emojis, no punctuation, just facts. I could almost hear the sound of glass shattering in their world, and I hadn't even started yet. Update. The silence was the loudest part. After I sent that message, everything went quiet. Not the kind of quiet you expect when people are mad. This was deeper. The kind that feels like a room has been cleared and nobody bothered to shut the door behind them for a day or two. Nothing, no calls, no emails, not even the group chat updates about family dinners or board meetings. It was like I'd been scrubbed from existence. They didn't block me. They just deleted me. Fine. That gave me time. I met with a lawyer I trusted, someone far from the family's usual circle. I laid it all out for her. The text, the fake message, the ownership structure of the building project. She reviewed it, nodded slowly, then told me what I already knew. They had no legal case, but they were emotionally screwed. Pulling my investment had triggered a chain reaction. Dan, the developer, was relying on my capital to finalize the architectural plans and secure the loan. Without it, the permits lapsed. The tenants that had signed early letters of intent? Gone. And since the rest of the family had leveraged other assets to guarantee their part of the investment, they were now exposed. Very exposed. That weekend, I heard from a mutual friend that my father had flown to Miami to meet with a private equity firm. Rumor was he was trying to replace my funding with a last-minute deal, the kind that came with ugly terms and long strings. I didn't interfere. Instead, I decided to hit them where it hurt most. My father's pride was wrapped around his real estate firm's reputation. Not just the buildings, but the story that our family had vision, that we could spot talent, build partnerships, and bring cities to life. So I called a journalist I knew from my college days, a guy who owed me a favor. I gave him a simple pitch. What happens when a family business turns on itself in the middle of a $50 million development? He liked it a lot. The story ran a few days later. Clean, no names, just facts, but anyone in our network would know exactly who it was about. It spread fast. My dad tried to spin it, but the damage was already done. His next meeting with investors got canceled. Andrew's partner started pulling out of smaller side ventures. And Alyssa? She went dark on social media, which was the biggest red flag of all. That girl lived for Instagram. Then something happened I didn't expect. My mom called again, but this time she left a voicemail. "Lucas, I don't know what you think happened, but this isn't a way to fix it. We're your family. Your father was just trying to protect what we built. Can't we sit down? That word, protect, stuck with me. Protect from what? I ran a reverse image search on that screenshot they claimed Alyssa had shown them. It wasn't hard. I found the original source within 5 minutes. A Reddit post from 4 years ago. Different names, different context, but the layout matched. The text was edited. She'd copied and pasted a fake conversation, changed the names, and passed it off as proof. I still didn't say anything. Instead, I made another quiet move. I met with the anchor tenant of the now-defunct office project. I told them I had another development coming online within a year, one with better amenities and a stronger financial backbone. I walked them through the plans and offered a discount on the first 5 years. They signed a letter of intent on the spot. Then I had that letter sent directly to Dan Myers. No note, just the letter. He'd know exactly what it meant. The project they were trying to build with me, I just rebuilt it without them. Still no call from Dad. Still no apology. They wanted me out of the family, so I stayed out, and they were beginning to understand just how much that was going to cost them. It had been 3 weeks since my dad sent that message, and every day since had been another quiet victory. The developer pulled out. The bank followed. Contractors stopped returning calls. The office complex they were so proud of was now an empty patch of fenced-in dirt with a project sign already sun-faded and flapping in the wind. No one wanted to say it, but the whole thing was dead. And the only thing keeping it alive had been me. Andrew tried to salvage it. He started reaching out to private investors, calling in old favors, even hinted at repackaging the deal through one of his friend's shell companies. But people talk. Word was out that the family business was fractured and unstable, and nobody wanted their money near a sinking ship. Alyssa went completely off the radar. No more Instagram posts, no brunch selfies, no fake hustle quotes. She ghosted the office and stopped replying to internal firm emails. The firm accountant, Denise, called me after hours one night. She said quietly that Alyssa had drained one of the discretionary accounts last month, the same one used for brand development. Apparently, it covered her Mexico trip and $2,000 worth of networking dinners. Denise only found out after someone else tried to book a flight with the company card and it got declined. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I made another move. There was a property next to my Midtown development, a narrow lot that used to be a laundromat. It had sat empty for 2 years because of a zoning issue. I bought it anyway, paid above market to push it through. A week later, I acquired a second permit. With both parcels, I could now expand construction to triple the original design. Basically, I was rebuilding the same office tower they tried to push me out of, just better, faster, and without them. They noticed. That Friday night, I showed up to a local charity gala. I wasn't planning to, but a donor dropped out and I got an invitation last minute. I knew my parents would be there, and I was right. My father saw me first. He was standing with 2 city officials, drink in hand, pretending to laugh at something. When he saw me, he stopped, just stared. No hello, no gesture, nothing. My mom came over about 20 minutes later. Her makeup was perfect, but her expression cracked just slightly. She asked if we could talk. She said this wasn't how things were supposed to go. I told her I wasn't the one who decided that. She said they thought they were protecting the business. That word again, protecting. They never protected me. They never even asked if what Alyssa showed them was real. No one verified anything. They just believed her. A couple lines of fake text on a screenshot and I became the villain overnight. I walked away without saying anything else. The next morning, Dan, the developer, messaged me directly. You're rebuilding it, aren't you? Midtown. We saw the permits. I didn't answer right away. He sent another. Your mother's devastated. Andrew's looking for lawyers. Alyssa's disappeared. You proved your point. What do you want? I read it twice. What did I want? I wanted one of them, just one, to come to me and say, did you actually say that? Did you really plan to take the business? That never happened. Instead, they cut me out, built a false narrative, and expected me to quietly disappear. I decided it was time to collect. Later that afternoon, I drove over to Alyssa's apartment. The Audi Q5 was sitting in the driveway. I paid for it, gave it to her 6 months ago after her old car died, because she said she didn't want to drive a cheap brand anymore. I still had the spare key, and the title was in my name. I didn't knock. I just unlocked it, started the engine, and backed out of the driveway like it was mine, because it was. She came running out in slippers, yelling something I didn't care to hear. I didn't stop. I didn't even look at her. An hour later, she finally texted, "Seriously? You're taking the car back?" I replied with one sentence. "You faked a message to get me cut out of my own family. So yeah, I'm taking the car back." No response. Not even dots. By Sunday, I got a call from Travis, the junior partner who was always more observant than he let on. "She moved back home," he said. "Back to my parents' house. The same house that had no room for me a few weeks ago." I sat on that news for a while. Thought about the silence, the way they'd let me slip away without asking any questions. Now Alyssa was back under their roof, and suddenly the truth wasn't so easy to ignore anymore. Something was about to break, and it wasn't going to be me. It was a Thursday afternoon when it happened. I wasn't there to see it in person, but I heard about it before sunset. My mother called 3 times in a row, which she hadn't done in weeks. I didn't answer. Then she sent a single text. "Please, it's not what we thought. Can you come by?" I didn't move. I sat at my desk in the Midtown office, the one they said I wasn't a part of anymore, and stared at the screen. 10 minutes later, Andrew called. That surprised me. We hadn't spoken directly since the fallout. His message just said, "She slipped up. Dad heard it himself." That got my attention. An hour later, I was in the driveway of the house I grew up in. The same house where I'd eaten Sunday dinners with people who no longer trusted me. The same house my sister had run back to after lighting the whole thing on fire. My dad opened the door. No smugness this time. No speech, just a nod. He stepped aside and let me in. The living room was quiet. My mom sat stiffly on the couch, hands clenched. Alyssa was nowhere in sight. Then my father said it. She admitted she faked the screenshot. He didn't look at me when he said it, just stared straight ahead like the words cost him something. Apparently, Alyssa had been arguing with him earlier that day, something about control, the car, her contributions to the business. She got heated, slipped up, and said something like, "He wouldn't have pulled out if you hadn't believed the message I made up." He froze, asked what she meant, and instead of backpedaling, she panicked and went on the offensive. Said she had to do it because I was taking over everything and that it wasn't fair that I got the final word on the biggest deal. She admitted everything. My mom cried. My dad didn't. He just asked me one question. "Why didn't you say something?" I shrugged. "Would you have believed me?" He didn't answer. We sat there in silence. For once, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt like the only adult in the room. They apologized. Not in the dramatic, falling to their knees kind of way. Just quiet, honest. My mom said they didn't want to believe it, but it seemed so real. They saw the fake messages, heard Alyssa's trembling voice, and they convinced themselves it was true and that I was dangerous. I told them I'd already moved on. Midtown was happening. The tenants were lining up. The money was clean. I didn't need their approval anymore. Then something strange happened. My dad said he wanted me back in the business. Said he'd made a mistake. That Alyssa was out. That he wanted me to rejoin the leadership board and bring the Midtown project under the family umbrella again. I said I'd think about it, and I did, but not for long. That weekend, I agreed under one condition. That I had full control over every financial decision for the next 2 years. No vetoes, no committees, just me. They agreed. And just like that, the business began to heal. My name was back on the documents. My face was on the branding materials. The bank that had ghosted them was now calling me for meetings. Alyssa, on the other hand, was unraveling. She had lost her apartment, lost her car, lost the brand deals she was quietly building on the side. And now she was living in her old room while my parents, finally seeing things clearly, weren't shielding her anymore. That's when I heard the last bit. She demanded the villa. A few years ago, my dad had promised her a beachfront property in the Carolinas once the new office project was done. She tried to collect early, said she deserved it after all the stress she'd been through. My dad gave it to her more out of guilt than anything. But now that changed. He revoked the transfer, told her she had to earn it. And just like that, her world flipped. No car, no house, no power, and I was back in charge. I thought that would be enough. But the best part? It still wasn't over. One morning, a week after I officially returned to the business, I drove to my parents' house to pick up some old files stored in the basement. My dad had texted saying they were where I'd left them 5 years ago, back when we were still building things together. I hadn't planned to stay long, but as I walked in through the back door, I heard Alyssa yelling from the upstairs hallway, "I'm not folding laundry. I'm not the maid." My mom's voice, calmer, followed, "Then maybe it's time you started acting like a daughter again." I didn't say anything, just kept walking. The shift had already happened. Alyssa was back under their roof, but she wasn't living in comfort. She was living in consequence. Every room echoed with it. The villa? Gone. My dad reversed the transfer and listed it within 48 hours of finding out about the faked message. He didn't even tell her. She found out when the real estate agent called her by mistake to confirm the viewing schedule. The car? Still in my garage. The status? Gone. Her friends stopped showing up. She hadn't posted on social media in 2 weeks. For her, that was like going off the grid entirely. Even her so-called brand partners had stopped replying. One unfollowed her publicly. That one stung. At dinner that night, which I stayed for out of curiosity, my dad asked her to help clean up the dishes. She just stared at him like he'd asked her to scrub the driveway with a toothbrush. Then my mom handed her a dish towel and said, "You don't get to check out anymore." She washed dishes in silence. I almost laughed. I didn't. The next day, she cornered me in the hallway before I left. "I'm not your enemy," she said. "You acted like one," I replied. "I made a mistake." "No, you made a move." She started tearing up but held it together. "I want to come back to the business. I can help. I need a second chance." I looked at her. This wasn't a performance. She was exhausted, humiliated, but not broken. Not yet. So I gave her an offer. "There's an opening in the internship program," I said. "Entry-level admin support, $17 an hour." Her jaw actually dropped. "You want me to be an intern?" "No. I want you to learn how to be useful." She walked away without responding. 2 days later, she submitted the application. Not through me, through HR. That Sunday, I got a text from my mom. "Thank you. She needs this." I didn't answer. Instead, I made a quiet adjustment to her internship. She'd be reporting directly to one of the managers who couldn't stand her. A woman she once called a glorified secretary during a strategy meeting. She'd be learning humility the same way she lost it. Slowly, painfully, in public. That night, I got a knock on my door. It was Alyssa. She looked tired but honest. "They want me to apologize," she said. I nodded. "You should." "I'm sorry," she said. "I was selfish. I thought if I could push you out, I could finally be something." "You were already something," I said. "But you chose to be this instead." She nodded. "What now?" I leaned against the doorway and thought about it. Then I said, "Now you get to learn what it means to start over. And if you work hard, maybe one day I'll let you lead a meeting." She actually smiled weakly. "That's fair." She turned to leave, but I called after her. "Oh, and one more thing. The car, it's still mine. You'll be taking the bus." For the first time, she didn't argue. And just like that, my revenge was over. But her lesson? That was just beginning. 3 weeks into her internship, Alyssa was a ghost of the girl she used to be. No high heels, no manicured nails, no designer bags. Just a plain blouse, flats, and a company ID badge that clipped awkwardly to the side of her purse. No one in the office treated her like family because she made it clear she didn't want to be part of a family. She wanted to be in charge. Now she was learning what the bottom felt like. I didn't speak to her much at work. I didn't need to. Her supervisor, Tasha, the same woman she once mocked in front of a full boardroom, was in charge of her progress reports. Tasha didn't go easy on her. And to Alyssa's credit, she didn't complain. Not once. Not even after Tasha made her redo an entire set of client files because she used the wrong format. She was trying. I'll give her that. But trying didn't erase what she'd done. And there was still one last thing she hadn't done. Not really. She hadn't owned it. That came a little later. It was the monthly strategy meeting. I called it. Everyone from the executive team was there, including the new partners from the Midtown expansion. We'd had a huge win with a national tenant signing a 10-year lease, the kind of deal we used to chase for months, now falling in our lap because of the noise we made. Halfway through the meeting, someone knocked and opened the door slightly. It was Alyssa. She had a clipboard in hand and a nervous expression I hadn't seen on her face since we were kids, and she'd broken Mom's favorite vase. "Can I say something?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow but nodded. She stepped inside, put the clipboard down, and looked at the room. People she once ordered around. People she used to dismiss like they weren't worth her time. "I lied," she said. "About Lucas, about the message. I made it up because I didn't think I mattered in the company unless I took something away from him. I was wrong. I hurt people. I damaged what we were building. And I wanted you all to know. No one made me say this. It's mine." No one said a word, not even me. She walked out quietly, shut the door, and that was the moment it ended. Later that week, I walked into her cubicle. She was typing notes into a spreadsheet. "You're doing better," I said. She looked up, surprised. "I'm trying." "You're succeeding," I said. "Which is harder than faking it." She nodded. Then I reached into my pocket and tossed her something. "The car key. I'll call it a loan. 10% of your salary goes toward it until it's paid off. Deal?" She smiled. It wasn't smug. It wasn't fake. Just grateful. Deal. We both knew things wouldn't be the same again, but that wasn't the point. The point was that she had finally hit bottom, and instead of blaming the world, she climbed out on her own. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means letting someone prove they can be different. And Alyssa. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I paid for my sister's honeymoon, but she said that's not enough. "Now you pay the rent." I said no and cut her off. A month later at a family dinner, my selfish sister, Linda, had always been a dreamer, but not in a good way. She lived in a kind of fantasy world where life worked out the way she wanted it to. Reality, responsibility, none of that mattered to her. And nothing proved that more than her track record with men. 3 marriages, 3 divorces, each one quicker than the last. Her first husband, Dan, was a solid guy, but she got bored. Said he was too predictable. Her second, Travis, was a reckless idiot who racked up debts so fast she had to move back in with our parents. The third, Mike, a walking disaster. He lasted barely a year before taking off with her car and maxing out her credit cards. So when she introduced husband number 4, Greg, I already knew how this was going to end. The first time I met him, something was off. He was too smooth, too rehearsed. Everything about him screamed phony. His exaggerated stories about big business plans, his constant name-dropping of people he claimed to know, his way of dodging specific questions about what he actually did for a living. I knew his type, all talk, no substance. Our parents didn't even pretend to care at that point. They didn't go to the wedding, didn't send a gift, didn't even bring it up in conversation. I figured they were exhausted from the cycle. Linda would swear up and down that this was the one, pour everything into the relationship, then watch it crash and burn, only to do it all over again with someone else. So, when she called me out of the blue, way too excited for it to be good news, I knew she was about to ask for something. "Jacob, hey, are you busy? What do you need, Linda?" She let out this exaggerated sigh, as if offended that I assumed she was asking for a favor. "Wow, can't I just call to say hi?" "No," she laughed. "Okay, fine, you got me. But it's nothing crazy. Just, I really need your help with something. I already knew I was going to regret this." She launched into her latest fantasy. She and Greg were planning their dream honeymoon in Thailand. 2 weeks, beach resort, once-in-a-lifetime kind of stuff. "And listen," she continued, "we almost have enough, but we're just a little short. So I was thinking, here it comes. Maybe you could help us out?" I sighed. "Linda, just $6,000, and it's not like it's a gift. I promise we'll pay it back next month. You know I always do." This was a lie, and we both knew it. You don't have $6,000, but you're going on a honeymoon? She huffed as if I was being unreasonable. We got a great deal, and Greg and I both have plans to start making real money when we get back. We just don't want to miss this, you know? I wasn't convinced. Our parents had long since stopped entertaining her financial disasters, and I was this close to doing the same. But she kept talking, laying it on thick. Jacob, you're the only one I can count on. Mom and Dad don't take me seriously, but you do. You know that Greg is the best man I've ever had. This is forever, I swear to you. Forever. Sure, just like the last three. But against my better judgment, I said yes. I had a steady job. $6,000 wasn't going to ruin me, and honestly, I just wanted her to stop talking. I wired the money. She squealed like a kid on Christmas morning, going on about how I was the best brother ever and how she would definitely pay me back in a month. I told her to enjoy the trip, but something in my gut told me I had just made a mistake. I had no idea how big of a mistake it was. A few weeks later, Linda and Greg came back from Thailand, all smiles and sunburns. I thought I'd stop by and see how their trip was going, mostly to remind her that the clock was ticking on the $6,000 she owed me. When I got there, Linda was sprawled out on the couch in sweatpants, scrolling through her phone like she had no worries. Greg was in the kitchen eating a bowl of cereal like it was the only food in the house. The whole place looked off. A mess. Not like two people who just got back from a luxury vacation. "Hey," I said, stepping inside. "So, how was it?" Linda barely looked up. "Oh, it was good. Not crazy expensive, but good." I frowned. "Not crazy expensive?" She shrugged. "Yeah, we didn't go crazy or anything. I don't know why, but that bothered me. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because it was too casual, as if the money I gave her meant nothing." "Well, I'm glad you had fun. So, about the money." And then it happened. Linda sat up, stretched, and said with a straight face, "Oh yeah, about that. We need more." I actually laughed. I thought she was joking. Good one. But she wasn't laughing. "No, I'm serious. We need some help with the rent this month." I stared at her. "What?" She sighed as if I was the unreasonable one. "Jacob, come on. We just got back and money is tight. You make good money. It's literally nothing for you to help us out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Linda, you owe me $6,000, and now you're asking for more?" Greg, who had been silent until then, chimed in with his mouth still half full of cereal. "It's no big deal, man. Family helps family." I turned to him. "I don't even know what you do for a living." He waved that off. "Freelance stuff." "Freelance what stuff?" I looked back at Linda. "You said you'd pay me back in a month." She rolled her eyes. "And I will. But right now the priority is the rent. It's not like you need the money right away." I felt my blood pressure rise. "Why did you even go on a honeymoon if you were broke?" And then she hesitated just for a second. But it was enough. She fumbled for an answer, glancing at Greg. He just kept eating his cereal as if none of this concerned him. I took a step back. "You weren't planning on paying me back, were you?" She scoffed. "Oh my God, Jacob. Don't be dramatic." That's when it clicked. She had never intended to pay me back. She and Greg had never been financially stable. The whole trip had been a fantasy financed by me, and now that reality was crashing down on them, they wanted me to keep bailing them out. I felt this sudden surge of anger. I wasn't even angry about the money. I was angry that they actually thought I was still stupid enough to keep falling for it. "No," I said. Linda blinked. "What?" "I'm done. I'm not giving you another dime, and you better figure out a way to pay me back, because I'm not letting this go." She stared at me as if I had just slapped her. Then, just like that, the sweetness in her voice disappeared. "Oh, so this is who you are?" she snapped. "You think you're better than me just because you've been lucky in life?" "Lucky," I repeated. "I work my ass off." "No, you just got everything handed to you. You don't know how hard it is for people like me and Greg." I let out a sharp laugh. "People like you and Greg? You mean people who refuse to get jobs?" She shot up from the couch. "You know what? Fine. Forget about it. But don't expect us to be nice to you when you come crawling back to us one day. This was actually hilarious. For what? Advice on how to cheat my family. She grabbed a pillow and threw it at me. Get out. I didn't need to be told twice. As I walked to my car, my phone started buzzing. Linda. I ignored it. Then Greg's number popped up. Ignored. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Guilt trips, insults, even veiled threats. I didn't respond. Then 2 weeks later, our parents invited us all over for dinner. They said they had news. I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. Besides, I wanted to see if Linda would actually show up after our falling out. Little did I know that I was walking into a disaster. I hadn't spoken to Linda since our fight. I ignored every call, every text, and honestly, it felt good. For once, I wasn't letting her guilt me into cleaning up her mess. So when our parents invited us all over for dinner, I hesitated. But then I thought, maybe they really do have important news. Maybe someone was sick, or maybe they were finally retiring and selling the house. Whatever it was, I thought I should be there. I arrived a little early, hoping to get a chance to talk to Mom and Dad before Linda arrived. I wanted to know if they'd heard anything from her, if she'd even acknowledged that she owed me $6,000. But as soon as I walked in, I knew something was wrong. Mom was in the kitchen setting the table, and Dad was sitting at the dining room table rubbing his temples like he already had a headache. Before I could ask what was wrong, the front door swung open. Linda walked in like she owned the place. Greg huddled behind her. And then, before anyone could even say hello, she was gone. You know what? She snapped, throwing her purse on the table. I'm sick of this family treating us like garbage. I barely had time to process what was happening before she turned directly to me. And you're the worst of all. You're selfish. You let your own sister struggle while you sit on your stupid pile of money. You act like you're better than us. But you know what? You're not. You're just a greedy little... I held up a hand. Whoa, what is this? Mom looked completely stunned. Linda, what's going on? Greg finally spoke up, his voice far too casual for what was happening. It's pretty simple. Jacob owes us money. I almost choked. I owe you. Linda crossed her arms. You refused to help us with the rent, so guess what? We got evicted. I blinked. How is that my fault? Greg leaned against the wall and grinned. You're the one who got us into this mess. If you just helped us, we wouldn't be in this situation. I was too stunned to even answer. Mom and Dad didn't say a word. They just watched, completely shocked. Linda must have taken their silence as approval, because she continued. You think you're a hero for cutting me off? She snapped. You're not. You're cruel. And you know what? We're done pretending to pay you back. We're not giving you the $6,000, and there's nothing you can do about it. Dad finally stood up. Linda, sit down. She ignored him. You think I care? You think I'm scared? You think you're going to take us to court over this? We don't have money. We don't have jobs. What are you going to do? Huh. Then she turned to our parents. And you? No better. You've never supported me. And now when I really need help, you just sit there and do nothing. Mom spoke carefully. Linda, you are not a victim here. Linda scoffed. Of course you would say that. Dad had had enough. You know what? Get out. Linda's face fell. What? Greg straightened. Excuse me? You heard me, Dad said. Both of you. Get out of my house. Linda's eyes shot around as if she couldn't believe what was happening. You're kicking me out? Me? Your own daughter. Dad didn't even hesitate. You just admitted to stealing from your own brother. You come into our house and yell at us like we owe you. On top of that, you married a man who refuses to work and thinks it's your family's job to support you. I'm done. We're done. Greg scoffed. You can't just. Dad took a step forward. Try me. For a second, I actually thought Greg was going to fight him. He puffed out his chest, squared his shoulders, but then, just as quickly, he deflated. Linda, realizing she had just burned her last bridge, did what she always did. She went for the drama. She gasped, covering her mouth as if she were going to cry. Oh my God. I see what's happening. You never loved me. You never cared. You're throwing me out like I'm nothing. Dad didn't say a word. He just pointed to the door. And then, Linda did something completely out of character. She picked up a wine glass from the table and threw it at the wall. It shattered into 100 little pieces. Mom actually jumped. That was it. That was the last straw. Dad didn't yell. He didn't lose his temper. He just turned to me and said, "Call the police." Linda froze. Greg's whole tough guy act was gone. "Wait. Hold on." Dad crossed his arms. "You want to act like lunatics? You want to destroy my home? Fine. But I won't stand for it." Linda held up her hands. Okay. We'll leave. No need for cops." Greg grabbed her arm and began to pull her toward the door. And just like that, they were gone. For a long time, none of us said anything. We just stood there, staring at the broken glass on the floor. Finally, Mom sighed. "Well, I guess that's it." Dad nodded. "I'm done trying to fix it." I exhaled and ran a hand through my hair. Me too. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Linda wasn't the type to let things go. And I was right, because 2 weeks later, she was back in my life, begging me for help. 2 weeks went by and I didn't hear a word from Linda. Not that I was complaining. After the dinner disaster, I figured she and Greg had either found another sucker to suck off or were couch surfing their way through life. Either way, I was done. Then, out of nowhere, she called. I stared down at my phone. I hadn't blocked her, mostly because I wanted to see how long it would take her to come crawling back. Curiosity got the better of me. I answered. The first thing I heard was sobs. Not the dramatic, fake tears she used when she wanted something. This was different. "Jacob," she gasped. "Please, I need you." I almost hung up right then and there, but something about the way she said it, raw, desperate, made me pause. I sighed. "What now?" She took a shaky breath. "Greg's gone." I sat up. "What do you mean, gone?" "He left me." She let out a choked sob. "As soon as he found out I actually had to pay you back, he ran. Took what little money we had left and cut me off from everything." I wasn't shocked. I had seen this coming. But still, to hear it out loud, damn. Linda had officially hit rock bottom. She sniffled. "I have nothing, Jacob. No apartment, no money, no one." I remained silent. Then she dropped the real bombshell. "I'm pregnant." My stomach churned. "What?" "I just found out. I'm pregnant. And Greg knows. And he left me anyway." I was speechless. Linda, a mother? I didn't even know how to process this. She broke down again. I swear I've changed. I know I messed up. I know I've been selfish. But please, just help me one last time. I have nowhere else to go." My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to say no, to let her figure it out on her own. She had burned every bridge, manipulated everyone who cared about her. And now she wanted another favor. But then I thought of the baby, an innocent child trapped in this mess before she was even born. I sighed. "Where are you?" She gave me an address, a cheap motel on the bad side of town. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot. She was sitting on the curb, looking more defeated than I had ever seen her. No makeup, hair a mess, dark circles under her eyes. I rolled down the window. "Get in." She climbed into the passenger seat, her arms wrapped around herself like she wanted to disappear. I looked at her. "So, what's the plan?" She shook her head. "I don't know." I gripped the wheel. "Are you sure you're pregnant?" She nodded. "Took 3 tests. All positive." I sighed. "Have you told Mom and Dad?" She hesitated. "No. They won't believe me. Not after everything." She wasn't wrong. I exhaled slowly. "Linda, I'll help you this time, but not with money. I'll help you figure something out, but I'm not your bank anymore." She wiped her nose. "That's all I want. Just someone to believe me." For the first time in years, I caught a glimpse of the little sister I used to know. And for the first time in years, I actually felt sorry for her. But deep inside, I had a sinking feeling this wasn't over. Not even close. I drove Linda back to my place, mostly because I didn't trust her to be alone in that rundown motel. She looked wrecked, more exhausted than I'd ever seen her. She barely spoke the whole drive, just stared out the window like she was watching her life burn down in real time. When we got inside, she sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest. "So," I said, crossing my arms, "you need a plan." She nodded weakly. "Yeah." I sighed. "First, you need to see a doctor. Make sure the pregnancy is real and healthy." She shot me a look. "You think I'm lying about this? Can you blame me?" She flinched but didn't argue. I continued. "If you're really pregnant, you need stability. A job, a place to stay. Something." She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "I don't even know where to start." I rubbed my temples. I was really doing this. After everything, I was really about to help her. But then, something happened that changed everything. Linda's phone lit up on the coffee table. A text. She didn't react, but I glanced at the screen. It was from Greg, and it said, "Is he buying it?" My blood turned to ice. I snatched the phone before she could react. "Hey!" she shrieked, lunging for it. I held it out of reach, scrolling through the messages, and my stomach dropped. The whole thing was a setup. Greg never actually left. He and Linda had come up with this sob story to get me to let my guard down. The pregnancy? Fake. Just a way to guilt me into helping. I kept scrolling, my hand shaking. Greg. Once he feels bad enough, we'll ask for the money. Linda. I think he's falling for it. Just need to act more desperate. Greg. Perfect. By the time he realizes, we'll be long gone. I looked up at her, my heart pounding. She was frozen, her face pale. "You lied," I said, my voice dangerously calm. She swallowed hard. "Jacob, you lied about being pregnant." She didn't answer. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Wow, wow, you really had me for a second. I actually felt bad for you. Wait, I can explain. No, I snapped. No, you can't. I stood up, gripping her phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "This is rock bottom, Linda. I don't care what your excuses are. You're done. You hear me? Done." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know what else to do. You shut me out. Mom and Dad shut me out. So you faked a pregnancy?" I was actually shaking. "You and Greg were going to scam me again?" She wiped at her face. I was desperate. I clenched my jaw. "No, you're just a liar." And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called the cops. She freaked out, grabbing my arm. "Jacob, please no." I yanked away from her. "You're a thief, con artist. You stole from me and you tried to do it again. You're going to learn what real consequences feel like." The dispatcher picked up. I gave them my address and told them I had someone trespassing who refused to leave. Linda lost it, screaming, crying, begging me not to do this. But I was done. 15 minutes later, the cops arrived. They didn't arrest her. She hadn't committed a crime right then and there, but they did escort her out. She didn't even fight it, just sobbed the whole way. Greg, of course, was nowhere to be found. And me? I stood in the doorway watching them take her away, feeling absolutely nothing. No regret, no guilt. That night, after the cops took Linda away, I knew I was done for good. No more listening to her lies. No more guilt-tripping. No more saving her. I blocked her number, changed mine the next day, and shut the door on that part of my life. For weeks, she tried everything. Emails, fake accounts, even having Greg call me from different numbers. But I ignored it all, and eventually, she gave up. 2 years later, I moved to a new city, started fresh, and never looked back. Mom and Dad cut her off too. They were sad at first, but after everything, they accepted that she chose this life. The last we heard, Greg was still around. Still drinking, still refusing to work. They were drowning in debt, constantly getting evicted. Mom told her to leave him. She refused. That was the last time they spoke. I don't know where she is now, and I don't care. Some people can't be saved, and for the first time in my life, I don't feel guilty about it. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.